This episode of the OnlyKings podcast is brought to you by OrganicPricedBooks.com. Guys, there's not been a better time to get into collecting comics, and OrganicPricedBooks.com has multiple formats such as the Omnibus, Deluxe hardcover, and trade paperbacks at huge discounts, such as The Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5, originally at $125, marked down to $80. Use my discount code NOAH, NOAH, at checkout for an additional discount on top of what you're already getting, which can range from anywhere between 25 to 42% off. Again, organicpricebooks.com, discount code NOAH, NOAH, for an additional discount. Now back to the show. Hey, buddy.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
I got to say, you are like, without a doubt, one of the most interesting people that I know. And the reason why I say that is, like, I've had the great fortune of meeting a decent amount of people, like going to my military school, that's like an international school, and then just retaining a couple of those friends, and then just things that I've done in my life going overseas. But like, you asked me a question when we used to work together. You asked me, what is a it was like, what is a high skill?
Your high income skill.
High income skill. Mm-hmm. What is a high income skill that you want to learn? Mm-hmm. And that stuck with me. Like, and that was maybe like, what, 2 months ago that we had that?
Had to be. Yeah, close to that.
Yeah, two and a half months ago. Mm-hmm. So what is the high income skill that you're working on right now? Because you are a starting entrepreneur for sure. And you have like your own marketing company and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So what's your high income skill?
Right. So to give like a little bit of background, I've been running my digital marketing company for like 3 years now. Been helping out a lot of like local communities, mainly through like digital marketing and just full spectrum marketing, right? There's a lot of companies out there that just don't know what they're doing. And like, so I step in and help them to develop a 3, 6, or 1 year plan to help them grow their company in whatever way that they're looking, whether that's like income, whether that's follower base, whether that's just like running digital marketing ads, like whatever they're looking for. Really though, since I've actually started working with MK and all of them, I've kind of really fallen in love with the direct marketing, and I kind of want to take that even farther and get really, really good at sales so that when I do open up my office, I'm actually able to bring in my digital marketing and then also bring in this direct marketing together.
So for people listening and watching that kind of need that broken down for them, what would be the conventional definition of direct marketing?
Direct marketing is just essentially working face to face with people, being able to market yourself on a daily. I mean, really, everything you do in terms of a human interaction is some sort of like type of direct marketing to do business with them. Right. So there's a lot of skills involved when having to like sell or work with people one-on-one, right? Yeah. Goes as far as being in real estate. For this job in particular, we're using the market of other Fortune 500 companies. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it really depends on what aspect you're applying direct marketing with, because everyone has heard that like direct marketing has made the most millionaires within like the past like 5+ years, right? Okay. Indirect marketing is something that is a little bit more new with the internet age, but it's very possible to make millions. And there's a lot of people that are just sitting at their desk right now making millions of dollars.
Right, and that's primarily, I would imagine, through the advent of social media. Right. Social media has just absolutely propelled the idea of indirect marketing and using the internet to your advantage.
Of course. Yeah, but there's also other ways. It doesn't have to be just through the internet itself. I mean, indirect marketing could be as much as just running a billboard ad or like having a poster like on a building or anything like that. So that's also indirect.
So where did marketing start for you? Like when did you first start getting like the interest of, okay, maybe this is something I could actually get into?
Yeah, so there was a mentor that I had when I first started. He was 21 years old. He made his first $1 million through drop shipping and within 1 year of doing it. And once I saw that like on his Snapchat, I saw that he had just posted like this $250,000 BMW that he purchased, And I was like, bro, like what? Like you have to teach me this. I had never seen anybody do that within 1 year. Like
And this was here in New Mexico?
here in New Mexico. Yeah. I don't even know how I had his Snapchat, but I messaged him and I was like, dude, I want to learn how to do this. He messaged me back. He was like, come into my office. I'll teach you everything I know. I was like, what? Okay.
So what is drop shipping then for people that have, because we had this conversation, but for everyone listening, what is drop shipping?
So drop shipping is essentially you're going to these third-party companies that sell things at wholesale, typically like Chinese products. You find things that are being sold for like $1 to $5. It really just depends on what you're looking at. You choose that product, you build a entire brand off of just one item, and it's a one-item store, and you brand it. You get your own business name. You market it however you like, and then you run like Facebook and Instagram ads to funnel people onto the website, and you sell the product for like $20, like no minimum than like $20 profit, and you just like pretty much funnel people through, and you buy the product for like maybe like $1 to $5, and then you just keep the rest of the money.
You make a ridiculous profit. Mm-hmm. So, if you don't mind me asking, so what your mentor, what was his product? Like, what did he end up selling at first?
Oh, like it's whatever works, right? So a lot of people when they want to get into drop shipping, they're like, oh, like I like gym equipment, so I'm gonna sell like gym equipment, or like, oh, I like this, so I'm gonna sell this. It's not like that. If you want to get good at drop shipping, you just have to find what's selling. So for him, he would choose things like baby products, makeup, like even like we had this thing that was to like rinse lettuce and stuff like that. Like
What?
we ended up selling like I think $150,000 within like 2 months of just that one product. The thing is about like drop shipping though is that it's not very sustainable. Reason being is because
Easy come, easy go, I would imagine.
yeah, it's because like it gets saturated really quickly. Like once somebody sees that a product is selling, and there's ways to look that up. Once somebody sees the product is selling, all of a sudden there's like 100 different stores of the same product, right? Because it's not branded. Anyone can steal that product and like make a company off of it. Right. Slap their name on it, right? So it gets saturated really quick. So once you find that winning product, you have it open for like a month, 2 months, shut down the store and start again. So it's not very sustainable. It's not like a way to like make income forever, but it's a good start. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I really, really like doing that for a while, but
And it seems 110% legal.
it is.
It is, right?
Yeah. Some people think it's like very scammy to do something like that, but it's not.
It's not scammy because it's you're buying the product and you're just reselling.
Yeah,
And that's
that's what people do all the time. That's
Right.
what this company with MK is doing.
Yeah.
And it's just through direct marketing. So like,
Well, is it though? Because that was, and we won't speak on like the actual name of like the people that represent and stuff like that, but like it's more of a, you're not selling a product, you're fundraising. I mean, you have to sell the organization for sure.
right.
But it's more fundraising than it is buying something and then having to make a turnaround profit, right?
Right. But I mean, in the same instance, right, we're going out there, we're talking to people day to day, and we're getting people to buy into this, and we're taking a commission off of that. Right. So what I'm doing in drop shipping is I'm finding the product, I'm doing all the work, I'm just taking the commission. It just happens to be a pretty high commission, which is pretty nice. Right. If you think about it, like anything you do in life has a commission. Anytime that you sacrifice your time in something, you are taking a commission from that. Like your job isn't guaranteed. Just because you're getting an hourly pay does not mean you're gonna, not have a commission type job, right? You can always lose that job no matter what. Yeah. So might as well spend your time in something that's going to be more sustainable and uncapped growth.
Okay. No, I mean, and that makes complete sense. So you brought up an interesting point about oversaturation, right? You get the product and you're doing so well with it, but yeah, eventually it's going to die off. That's why you see a lot of rebranding of things. That's why you see a lot of that's why the iPhone's so popular, is they probably had all the features that we have now lined up since the 90s, but
Right.
they're doing slow drip release so that it seems like it's a brand new thing that they're innovating. So to combat your strategy anyway, because you have become a part of that management team, to help combat oversaturation in the market, what are you finding is working? Doing with your direct market formula? Like what's helping you guys not oversaturate that market.
So you're talking about with what I do with
Yes.
MK?
Yeah.
And this is one thing I brought up when I was up there in Georgia. I was like, how do you not get oversaturated? And
Right.
if you think about it, because we're working with nonprofits and helping them grow and get their income, um, it's really hard to get saturated, right? If you think about the population here in New Mexico alone, it's a very low population, but we're still hitting about 1 million people here. How long will it take for 15 to 40 employees to talk to 1 million people?
So I would agree with you. My only question now would be, and again, I was only with you guys for like, how many of you guys are in business for now?
It's like 3 months.
Yeah, I was there for like 3 months.
You had to be there for, yeah, like at least 2.5 to 3
Oh no,
months.
I'm sorry.
somewhere around there.
I started like beginning of the new year, and
Mm-hmm.
I left like mid March, beginning of
Yep.
March,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's say 2.5 months, kind of round up a little bit.
Right.
So it was smart what they were doing. Like the formula itself is smart. You divvy up your area into sectors, and you cycle through and go through like that.
Right.
But eventually you have to expand, right? Eventually you have to hit the further reaches of New Mexico, because while like I'd probably say 80% of our population is centralized, if you want to take from like Santa Fe down to Los Alamos, or is that Lunas? I always mix them up.
Los
down
Lunas.
south. Los
Yeah,
Lunas,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Los Lunas. So if you want to take the tippy top of Santa Fe down to Los Lunas, that's probably like 80% of your population. But then you've got like the surrounding cities, right? You've got like Farmington way out there and Las Vegas, and then
Right.
like down south you've got Roswell, Hobbs, Carlsbad, Artesia. You got all that. Is that potentially something you guys are going to end up having to look into? I would think you would have to at some point.
Not have to. No, like, because MK just started, right? She's only been running it for like 4 months now. So there's no way that we're saturating the market yet. There's so much potential right now to make a lot of money there. The thing is that, that's the thing with nonprofits, it's not like a one and done. You know, someone walks up, give you like $20, and that's the last you're ever going to hear from that person again, right? Because it's a nonprofit, there are people who are going to double donate. Even if it's like 6 months down the road, there are people that are going to keep donating. So it's really hard to get a nonprofit to be fully saturated.
And have you guys set a standard to like, okay, this is kind of like where we're inching up on the idea that possibly we have oversaturated this market, that we have kind of melted dry? Is there a certain like standard for like, this is the definition of what oversaturation is for us? Maybe this is how maybe we should start thinking about readjusting. Like, has that been set yet, do you think?
Absolutely not. No, and it's one of those things where like because there is no technical saturation involved with a nonprofit, and because MK just started, all she's looking at is just growing right now. The issue that we're having right now is retention of new employees.
Right.
So that's what we're working on more so than worrying about any sort of saturation. Plus, to add on top of that, if we do end up getting saturated for whatever reason, and there's just no way we can hit a bell anytime that we go out there, there's always other nonprofits that
I
we
was
can
going to
pick
say,
up.
that's the easy fix, right? Is you just, as you rebrand and get another product, you just get another client.
Even if we truly had to, we can pick up like actual physical products and sell those too. The cool thing about this market is that we're teaching people to do sales. We're teaching people how to do direct marketing. And with that, these skills and techniques that we're learning is a high income skill because we can pick up now any product and we'll have the skills available to know how to sell it to other people.
Right.
And that's like the amazing part of this job.
Yeah.
Is that we can actually choose whatever we want. We don't have to work with nonprofits. Like we can work with anything and we can still make money from it no matter what.
Right.
And that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's one real good thing that I loved about it, working with you guys, was that learning the skills that you did, whether like most of them I'd say are active skills, obviously, because you're in that direct marketing business. But there's a lot of passive things as well that you're able to pick up while you're there that really does, like, I mean, it ups your people skills a lot.
Absolutely.
You know, and like I've like a lot of the communication skills that I'm trying to implement into this, I actually, or some of them that I actually picked up there.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
no, it was a real beneficial thing. So you said you wanted to open up your own office. So what do you envision for that? Like, what does that look like for you?
Dude, so like as we were talking about, one of my main goals is to mentor and like teach, and like I absolutely love that. And the whole like foundation of this company is to mentor and teach people. Like
Right.
really going out to the field is a joke. Right? There's other owners that say the same thing. They're like it's a joke.
Yeah.
But the thing is that that sets the foundation to start one of these companies and make millions of dollars. Right? So it's like 6 to 8 months where like, yeah, sure, you have to go out to the field. Okay, got to make a little bit of money while you're there. But once you hit a certain point, now you're just staying in the office and now you're learning how to manage a team and build a team. And while you're building that team, you're teaching them the same thing that you're knowing. So now you're just like opening up multiple like 100,000 to $1 million companies,
Right.
and you're getting a profit from that. So it, in a certain way, we're just talking about this. It does kind of sound like an MLM. It's very.
I
It's
didn't want to say it.
It's
but
very borderline MLM.
It is borderline. And,
but it's
yeah.
not quite there.
Well, because
Not
here's
quite.
please correct me if I'm wrong, but I had this conversation with my old boss there, and I was kind of like breaking it down, and I was like, for me, the only difference between the model we're using and a model that an MLM, like on a grander scale, right? When you're starting to talk about like ownership of different offices,
Right.
the only difference in model, which is a very crucial one, is that you don't have to buy in. Like, you're not paying any money to get in. You just get hired and you start doing things.
Right.
And I mean, and that's a big benefit because obviously you're not putting up money anywhere sucks where you don't have to, A. But B, what is cool as far as I understand it is that, let's say when that time comes, you go out and you make your own, you create your own office. They're going to help you with the startup cost, right?
They help you with the startup cost. They really, I mean, at what point in this job did you ever feel like you were fully alone?
No, yeah, you didn't. Yeah.
Ever.
No, yeah.
Ever. They walked you through step by
Yeah,
step.
and if you did feel alone at the job, that was your fault.
And there's not very many MLMs that are going to be out there. There's a lot that will just throw you out there
Yeah.
and be like, good luck, have fun.
Yeah.
Hope you hit your, like, make your money. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
They
Like,
kind of they ship you your Mary Kay products every month.
yeah,
like,
yeah,
sell
and you're
it.
just left to dry. Yeah, and
Yeah.
what really this company is doing is they are teaching you not only like these skills to go out there and make money, but to also like run your own business, and they take you step by step, and that's like
Right.
the cool thing. And you get a cut from that, from teaching these people to open up their own business. You get a cut from it. And so that's what like really separates it. You're really just training entrepreneurs and you're finding the diamonds, I guess you can say.
It's oh my god. Fuck off.
Yeah. Absolutely. Finding your diamonds, dude. I had a conversation about that while I was out there in Georgia with an Uber driver. He really wanted to get into like tech.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him about it. I was like, dude, you're an Uber driver, so you're obviously talking to a lot of people every single day. I was like, you don't really need a degree if you want to get into the tech industry. You just really have to know what you're doing. So, like, if you even train yourself every single day, eventually you're going to come across somebody who's going to give you an opportunity, right? As long as you're prepared for that opportunity, you'll eventually find your diamond, is what I told him.
Well, I mean, that's a really good philosophy. There is a question where I asked you to circle back to that, but that's like the philosophy. Like, I had that same conversation with my producer. Like, so my producer for this lives out in LA. We're buddies from high school, and I approached him with this. Turns out he's got another project he's working on that's going to coincide with this. I'm like, fuck it, let's do it and just see what happens. Did not think it was going to turn into all this, but like, let's just see what happens.
Just start something.
Exactly. Just start it up, see what the fuck happens. We had that conversation where it's like, if you just do something long enough, but you do it well, right? Just banging your head against the wall. But like, if you're doing something and you're trying at it long enough, you're going to end up succeeding in one way or another.
And I think it's a super important thing for people to hear now, like especially because we're still, even though like things are starting to lighten up in certain spots in the country, we're still in the pandemic, right? And the pandemic caused a lot of people to give up. But it also like energized a ton of people to get started on something, right? Like that's where this came from. I was at a different job. Granted, I was just happy to have a job during the pandemic. The one I had before I went to you guys, and I was just grateful to have one. You know, it was fuck me. It was like July at that point. We're still knuckle deep in it. Nothing's looking bright. I was happy to be there, but I like looked around, and I was like, fuck, man. Like all the people, it was a local business. Granted, it was a huge for Albuquerque, like flooring company, right? So they had a bunch of like just multi-million-dollar contracts across the state, and some even like in West Texas and Arizona. So like they were a very wealthy company at the top, right? But like, I mean, I was just a warehouse worker, so I was making a lot of money. But I looked around, and it was one of those companies where everyone just stayed there until you had to wait to move up. You had to wait till somebody quit, someone got fired, retired, or died.
How most companies are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what made that worse though is they're local with one location. So there's like no growth going on. Like I remember this guy that I worked with, real nice dude, real nice guy. He'd been with the company for like 12 or 13 years in the same position that I was in, and he maybe made $4 more than I did.
Okay.
Yeah. And I looked around and I saw that.
That's like, yeah. Like that is just a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
Right?
I was looking at a graveyard, you know? I was looking at a graveyard and I was like, fuck, man, I got to do something. And that's when like I just started shotgunning my resume out everywhere. I didn't even think about this being a money-making thing. Not that it is right now, but like there's still a potential for that to be now. That's come across my table. And yeah, it's just a really good point to bring up. Like as long as you just keep trying and you keep working at something, eventually something's going to work out. You're going to be at the right place at the right time. Like, you know, The Undertaker from WWE?
I do.
Yeah, so he had an interview with Rogan about 2 months ago on his podcast. And I was listening to it. It was fascinating what this fucking guy put his body through. But he was telling a story about how when he started out, I believe he was either in Georgia or Alabama. And he would go to the wrestling like office and sit in the waiting area for like 6 hours a day, waiting for someone to talk to him, waiting for someone to like listen to him, right? And like he did that for something like 4 years. Like in his off time, he would just go and sit there and wait for someone to notice him, wait for someone to have more than a hi, how's it going conversation with him.
Pretty ambitious.
Yeah. And then finally someone was like, hey, there's a dude sitting out there. You want to give him a shot? Just see what he's like 24, I think at the time.
He's been showing up every single day. Like we need to get rid of this guy.
he's like 6'5", almost 300 pounds. Just let him do something.
We're talking about the Undertaker.
Yeah,
right?
the Undertaker.
Really?
Like the black everything, black hat.
I know the Undertaker. Yeah, how can you not? Like he's iconic.
Yeah, so now he's the Undertaker, all because somebody like gave him a shot. So I think shit like that is really important for people to hear at every level.
Yeah, I was listening to I listen to a lot of like really big entrepreneurs who like do a lot of like coaching and mentoring themselves, and it comes down to like if you give like even 10% effort, you're giving 10% more than what the average human is doing, and you can easily make it.
Yeah.
You just have to stay consistent. And that's like the same thing that comes into marketing as well as consistency. A lot of people like start things and then they stop like after like the first 2 weeks. I think the statistic and that's why like, I think it's like 96 or 98% of businesses fail because they can't stay consistent and they end up giving up on themselves before they even got started.
So as far as consistency goes, like again, putting yourself in your shoes, like what's your timeline? When do you plan on opening an office? Like what's that target date? Do you have one yet? Just for sake of argument.
By the end of the year.
End of the year. Okay, so let's round up and say January of 2022, right? You're in your office, you're there, you're doing your thing. When it comes to consistency, what are like your bottom lines? Like these are the things that we have to keep on greasing these wheels to keep this machine going. Have you started thinking about that yet? Like where you have to stay consistent in, like the most important, like I guess like tenets of that company for you would be?
I mean, for me, like when it comes to opening this office here within the next year or so, it's really gonna be like one of those things where there's not gonna be like a bottom line kind of thing. Like I'm gonna do whatever it takes to freaking make it, right?
Yeah.
So whether that means for me to work like 12 hours every single day, which I kind of already am.
I was about to say you kind of already do because
Yeah, and I will do that if I have to. And like, there's not really like a bottom line type of thing. I guess really this job really comes down to recruiting at first. Like, you have to make sure you get enough people in to like actually start bringing in some money.
right.
But the thing is too is that like by the end of this year, I'm gonna have enough money saved up to where I can actually stay afloat if I actually have to. But like how MK was, she was making, oh man, she started making like 5 to 6K a day over there. Even when she started opening up, something like that.
Oh, that's what the office was bringing in. Oh, I was like, that was her profit. What the fuck?
Do you know what her profit was?
No, I don't. She did not disclose that to me.
You don't have to. Like, you can do it yourself.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, because she takes like half, right? No. Yes? No. I forget.
Okay.
I probably have to think about it. If you don't want to disclose that, that's okay.
No. It's yeah. So I mean,
Well, because you're gonna be an owner one day too. So what?
I don't know MK's like direct numbers, but
Right.
if you think about it, right? So let's say she's pulling in like 6K a day.
Yeah, and and then for people listening,
she's-
that's $6,000 in donations that her office is bringing in from averaging like 10 in the morning to 5:30 at night.
Roughly.
That's what maybe 6 teams are bringing in, or 6 events rather, right?
So yeah, I mean like
6 or 7 go out.
even less than that
Okay.
sometimes. Yeah, it really just depends on the event. But you're pulling in 6K a day, right? And this is just like starting out. She's making 10% of that every single day.
Right.
So what's 10% of 6K?
600, right? Or is it? Yeah.
Is it 600?
It's 600, right?
Something like that.
I'm not stupid, right? It's six. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I have a calculator.
I'm glad you came prepared. Awesome.
Yes, I'm not stupid. It's 600.
600?
Okay,
Okay,
yes.
wait. Pull that calculator back out.
Well, yeah, when you do that fucking retarded math,
Multiply that.
let's say by 5, that's a low end. And then so that's 1 week, multiply by 4. Okay, you want to take away taxes.
What was that number?
I don't ever want to do that math ever again. Averaging 9,600 a month.
It's a lot of money
It's a lot
just
of fucking money.
starting off, dude. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy numbers. And
Yeah.
you think you go to Hytham's office, like up in Georgia, and he's pulling 10 to 15K a day.
A day, yeah.
A day. This guy.
But he's also got, like, the crazy thing about that dude is he's got his hands in, like, so many other offices that I would imagine at one point,
yeah.
if it hasn't come already, he could just shut down his office if he wanted to, disperse his people.
That's not even his office, technically. It's
And,
Mateen's.
It's whose?
So there's 3 people. There's 3 owners in there that's running that. I don't even think he technically owns an office. He doesn't own an office.
Because he has yeah. I was
He has
surprised-
other directors like running everything, and
Right.
you actually get, I think it's like 2% off of other offices.
Yeah.
So I mean, like 2%, a starting office can pull like $1 million in their first year. Well, what's 2% of $1 million? And he has multiple directors like pulling that much money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
like
it's ridiculous.
it's
No, it's crazy.
It's literally uncapped. So like, why would I not take advantage of that? And
No,
so
yeah.
the main goal right now is for me to open up my office, have that the main source of income, so I can start investing into other things.
See, and this is the perfect thing for someone like you to get into because you do want to get so deep into marketing. Like, this is the perfect thing for you.
Yeah. So like, how awesome would it be to have like my direct marketing company, right? But then I bring alongside my digital marketing company, and I just
Exactly.
become like this freaking ultimate force that
You-
just goes and kills everybody out.
Yeah, you sound like fucking Lex Luthor. So your digital marketing company, how did that start out? And I'm spacing on the name. I apologize.
I don't think I ever told you.
You in the questionnaire you sent it to me.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's called Unity Marketing.
It is Unity. Okay.
Unity. Yeah.
Okay. So how did that get started?
Really, it was just like an idea, and I was like, okay, so now that I've been doing drop shipping, I have a pretty good idea on how everything runs. Now I want to start like opening up to like other companies here in Albuquerque, and I want to help them because that's sustainable. Because like as I was saying, the drop shipping is not sustainable.
Yeah.
So now I need like some sort of sustainable income. So how can I do that? Well, I'm just gonna help other companies and sign these contracts where I'm gonna be getting more sustainable income. And that's kind of how it started. I worked with a few companies, like a water store. I worked with an embroidery company, screen printing and stuff like that. I've worked with a few other clients too. So I've just been running that for quite some time. And then MK kind of gave me this opportunity. During 2020, I was just kind of chilling. I didn't really do much. I was just like... it was just nice to have a break. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
But like
I do.
everyone was just like stuck at home. And
Yeah.
like thinking about New Mexico too, I've been wanting to move out of the state for a while. I was actually planning on moving to Seattle, Washington.
Right. I
By
remember having that
July.
conversation.
Yeah. And then now that I had this opportunity, I just kind of stayed.
Yeah.
So that's probably where I might open up my business.
I was gonna say like this opportunity has an out anyway.
Yeah, I can even go like outside the country. They're
Yeah,
like
which is
looking to expand
wild.
internationally too.
Which is wild.
That is wild.
Yeah. I'm looking to move to Texas by the end of the year.
You seem like a Texas guy.
I can't handle
I
New
can see that. You
Mexico
can, like,
anymore, dude.
Join Joe Rogan over there, hopping in on his podcast.
Dude, that'd be crazy. But no, like I just what I would like to do is I would like to be able to like stick at my job, get some managerial experience, get some experience in the caregiving field, right? And then just find a lateral job out in Texas, preferably a small-ish, like almost like how the Rio Rancho is to Albuquerque. Find that to like in Austin or Dallas or San Antonio, and be just outside the big city. That'd be nice, but like not have to deal with the big city, and just get a job laterally like that.
So you want to like climb the corporate ladder a little bit?
Maybe like I would like to personally do more like honestly like I don't mind the job that I'm in, and I'm sure I could find something that's more passionate. I'm more passionate about out there. I mean, while my primary goal is not to make like oogles and boogles of dollars out of the podcast, that's not even in the sites right now. But like if I could find a way to get that kind of like an entertainment job, you know, creating things. Even if I got into like the movie industry and like figured out how to do like film or producing somebody else's content, right? Like something like that where it's not a corporate ladder per se, or like I'm like, as long as I can
be a creator.
Yeah, just be a creator. Like, and it's so weird saying that now because like the content creator, right? Like the whole YouTube thing that everyone's like hopping onto, but like there's a lot of money in that if you do it properly. I feel like, and Austin specifically has become just an entire boom town right now. It is growing.
Austin? Yeah, it has.
Austin is going like fucking crazy. And when Elon finally moves the grand majority of Tesla into Texas, specifically Austin, it's going to skyrocket. Now, granted, that also means that the living expenses are going to go up, which sucks. But there's just a lot more opportunity out there. And yeah, man, I just can't handle New Mexico anymore, dude.
And so that was the issue with my digital marketing company is that, quite honestly, like there's a lot of broke people here. Like anytime I would try to like sign a contract, nobody wanted to pay.
Yeah.
And like that kind of falls on me though, because I wasn't like showing enough value in my work. But at the same time, people also just are struggling themselves. There's a lot of businesses here that are just struggling.
Well, yeah, and that's like pre-pandemic too.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, there's a lot of like struggling businesses, but it surprises me though because the types of businesses that are opening up here that are struggling are the ones that like aren't doing what they have to do to take care of their business. Like you can tell it's not like Like their life is in it, but they're not doing the things necessary to like actually maintain and run it. To give you an example, like I'm working with the UFC gym. I just signed a contract with them, and they in particular like don't know their client base, which is a problem, right? They
So
don't
how
know.
how do you tell that?
They don't know the demographics of their customers. They don't know the age range. They don't know like what's the most popular class there at the UFC gym. They don't know like a lot of things, like the problems that they're having there. So like we started running reviews where we're asking their clients like, okay, what do you know about your company? Or like, what do you know about this company? What is your thoughts on it and what needs to improve? And there's like a few other questions on there too.
Right.
And like it just surprises me that like this is something new to them, right? They've never ran reviews before when that's like some of the most important things you can do.
Oh no, you're good. I'm just checking it. Oh yeah, you're good. So they're not running reviews to check their own progress?
Yeah, they don't know their clients.
That seems how? Like, did you ask them that? Or like, why aren't you guys doing this?
Basically said like they weren't like they were slacking on it because of 2020. Like they were struggling through 2020, and that's the thing is that if you're ever struggling, the last thing you want to do is like start taking away like important factors such as
Oh,
like,
for sure.
reviews. Yeah, you always want to be taking in like client information.
So where is the UFC gym located now? Because I know like the original.
It's in Rio Rancho.
It's in Rio Rancho. Okay, because I remember a location they had like right by here. It was off of Academy. No,
There's a couple that shut down.
yeah, Academy in San Mateo. They're a different gym now. But I remember it used to be a UFC, so they're open in Rio Rancho. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Okay. So, but before you started doing marketing, you actually studied computer engineering, right?
Software engineering.
Software
I
engineering.
like started in computer engineering, and then I went
Okay.
to software. Just for your audience,
Yeah.
the way that I explain it, a lot of people are like, okay, there's computer engineering and there's software engineering, or other words like computer science. Computer engineering is like when you get to build computer chips,
Yeah.
and software engineering is when you get to program those computer chips. That's the best way that I
okay.
explain it. Yeah.
So what made you want to switch out of that? Like,
So I started in computer engineering, did that for like 2.5 years, and I was like, I hate this. I like I hated circuits. And then I switched over to software engineering where I like just fell in love with that. I was really good at programming.
okay.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts right now on the clear like need and now boom of automation that we're going through here in the country? Like the stuff that basically, as far as I'm concerned, Andrew Yang was like prophesizing during that entire the debate cycle or debate circuit, I guess you want to call it, for 2020's election, where he's like, there's going to come a time where there's mass joblessness, where automation is going to be booming, where we're going to need like a UBI to come in.
Universal basic income.
Yeah, the UBI is going to need to come in and help these people out
That
because
was ambitious of him to say that.
it was. No, I agree.
It's a little too early, but yeah.
You think it's too early for a UBI? Why do you say that?
There's just like there's no way that yes they are like big data companies are pulling in a lot of money right now, and data yes is the most valuable resource, but there's no way that it's enough to where we can afford $1,000 a month to everybody, every U.S. citizen.
Well, see, what was cool though was, so you're referring to like where you would get like where he's pulling a fraction of every like Google search, Facebook input,
And they're
Amazon
just
purchase.
like, here you guys go, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what I thought was cool was that was one way of bringing in profit to fund a UBI, but the other way he was going to do it, which I thought was fucking ingenious, was he was going to legalize marijuana federally. And then, so once that is federally legalized, you get all the taxes from that. And then he pardons everyone who has a nonviolent drug crime related to marijuana. And I think he actually wanted to move forward, and I don't know if he wanted to legalize mushrooms, but he wanted to like clear them for testing for mental health problems. And so he was going to legalize, like I said, legalize marijuana and pardon everyone in the jail systems that had that nonviolent drug crime. And that's like, I think I was watching this video about Rikers Island, and 80% of the people in Rikers right now have a nonviolent drug crime. Now, granted, of that 80%, how many is it only nonviolent drug crime? That'd be interesting to look into. But the fact that there are people even in Rikers, right, one of the most violent prisons in this country, probably the most violent, definitely the most notorious, has people that have a nonviolent drug crime in it alone.
Yeah, I mean everything has its consequences, right? If you were to play out something like that, I mean, we'll see like a decrease in one area and an increase somewhere else. I don't know what the increase would be somewhere else, but I mean, you just have to look at every implication, and that's why politics are just so difficult. Andrew Yang, is that what it was?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was a very young individual, wasn't he?
I know he's in his 40s.
He was an entrepreneur himself, and he made like a lot of money.
Well, he helped run the entrepreneurial department for Obama. Like they had a specialized little division. It was like a cabinet position, obviously, but they had a little division, and Andrew Yang was running it for I think Obama's second term.
How far along did he make it in the election?
Not very.
I don't think he did. Huh?
He made it through 2 debates, maybe 3. Typically, I have.
He blew up on media because he was like talking about the universal basic income, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, like this is revolutionary! Like we got to vote this guy on now, right?"
Yeah,
but
I'm honestly surprised at 1,000 like that. Like not to put on the tinfoil hat, but like that kind of like helped push the idea for me that the elections, at least on the Democratic side, really are rigged a certain way. Like it's what the DNC wants, and not what their actual constituents want. Because I am genuinely surprised that offering people a free $1,000 a month did not skyrocket him. Like I'm just shocked that at least on the Democratic side, right?
Yeah.
Republicans didn't like it because of the tax. They envisioned a tax hike,
right?
But I'm just surprised that it didn't like bump it up to at least a third or second place.
Right. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but there's just like so many things when it comes to having a universal base income that can like cause an issue. And like I think there's a lot of data that can be pulled from just the pandemic itself on like the money that they're giving out, right? The $1,400 that was given out to everybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data in there to see how it actually stimulated the economy and if having a universal base income would actually be beneficial.
Well, they also...
Or it could actually hurt the country in some ways, too.
Well, they also fucked it up. Like, they gave... I think it was with the... It went down a little bit for the third stimulus check that we got. Excuse me. But for the first stimulus check we got, I think it was something like 250,000 dead people accidentally got a stimulus check.
Accidentally.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or dead, quote unquote dead. And,
I'm sure there were so many exploits.
And
I guarantee. Yeah.
And then so you move on to the third one, and it was like I think it was still in the 6 figures of people that got.
And how many did you say? How many people?
So at first, I think it was about 250,000.
Okay. Which in hindsight really isn't that many.
It's not a whole lot of people, but it's also the amount of data they were to pull at the time. Because that report came out. Because we got our first stimulus check in, June?
Something like that.
Maybe a little earlier than that. Because I remember the report. I remember reading that report around Thanksgiving time.
Well, they're also giving a lot of money to, unemployment, too.
Well, see, and I think that's the bigger problem. And we're seeing that now here in New Mexico, where a bunch of places, especially healthcare, they just can't hire people because nobody wants to work. Everyone's just living off of the unemployment checks that they're getting and just being lazy sons of bitches. There's no other way to put it.
I mean, yeah, so, of course, and that's a problem. That is less prominent now, though, than it was in 2020 because they're not paying as much as they were. They're paying an additional $600 a week.
I was going to say it's an additional...
It was crazy. Yeah, you're getting $300 plus an additional $600.
Yeah,
there's a lot of frontline workers that was really pissed.
I'd
Especially
be
nurses.
Fucking pissed too.
Yeah, nurses were really mad. My roommate's a nurse and he's like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, and that's kind of why I was just chilling during 2020. Part of the reason, right? Because I could just chill and study and just learn as much as I can for an entire year, and I don't like look at how much money I'm getting, right? And I
Yeah.
can just like work on different investments instead,
Yeah.
which is nice.
And the shame was like not a lot of people had that mindset. One thing that was positive that came out of the pandemic was like, so the gyms like just shut down. Not that that's a positive, but like all the gyms just shut down, right? For a minimum of like 4 months across the country. I think in LA right now, most of the gyms are shut down still. I think, or maybe they just opened them back up like a week and a half ago. But like almost, if not every like fitness enthusiast, influencer, bodybuilder, powerlifter, who the fuck it is on Instagram that I follow, they were putting up these absolutely ridiculous home workouts. It's like to help people out, because if you're just gonna be sitting home all day and doing nothing,
Oh yeah,
you
I mean,
might
like,
as
people
well.
got really unhealthy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There was actually a study that just came out, and it said that the average American in 2020 gained 50 pounds.
Not me, but
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah. No, I hear you on that.
But that's fucking crazy.
It was crazy. Yeah, and see, and that's the thing is that with health, wealth, and just overall happiness, like that's a mindset thing, right?
for sure.
Like how you deal with your money and how you deal with your own health, that falls back on you
No,
at
for
the
sure.
end of the day. Even though you're not working, that doesn't mean that you should just like sit back and be lazy. And like you look at it now, though, most people were getting that extra $600 a month, or sorry, a week, and they're still broke, right? And for a lot of people, that's the most money they'd ever made in their life. And you got to ask, like, why are they still broke, right?
Well,
Because they don't know money management.
liquor sales went up 140% in the country when the quarantines kicked
Not
off.
gonna lie, I was a part of that. Like, yeah.
Liquor sales fucking skyrocketed. Tobacco sales fucking skyrocketed. Gun sales skyrocketed, which I thought was hilarious.
I'm sure, yeah.
You know, the sales of guns.
Well, no, so that falls on a whole different subject
Yeah.
with guns and
Yeah.
like the scarcity and like everything. Everyone was freaking out with the pandemic and with everything that Trump was doing on top of like the new election with Biden and all that. Like, we're still having gun problems right now.
Oh yeah, you
Like,
can't find ammo anymore. Still,
absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that play into that, but ultimately it's a mindset thing.
So going back to health, like for you specifically, your thing is jujitsu.
Jiu-jitsu, at the time in 2020, I was actually training for a half marathon.
Okay.
So I was running a lot.
Oh wow. So what made you want to switch from that to? Are you still training jujitsu?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what made you want to do the switch from marathon running to combat fighting?
Well, okay, so one, I was training for a specific run that was happening over in Red River.
Okay.
It was a mountain run. It's going to be about 13 miles. I'd done it once before, but I wanted to do it again and train as much as I could. With the pandemic, though, I ended up canceling.
Right.
So that was one reason. I was like, okay, well, there's really no reason why I'm doing this. Second of all, you're like by yourself the whole time, right? You're running for like miles and miles, and like
Yeah.
you're just training by yourself the whole time. Like there's no one that I knew that would like come and run like 6 miles just for fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Fuck
Like
that.
yeah, absolutely. So I was like, okay, this is kind of boring. I'm like running every single day, and I'm like losing so much weight. Like I was skinnier than I am now,
Yeah.
because like running and cardio, I mean, you do it so much, and you're not eating enough carbs. You're even gonna lose your muscle too over time. So it just wasn't like overall healthy. So when I started into looking into like doing other things, I just like Joe Rogan actually was the main reason why I was like, okay, this seems kind of badass. Let me like check this out. And I went to the UFC gym, and pretty much the rest is history. I like met my team, and they're all freaking awesome, and they're all super dedicated, and they're part of the reason why like I decided to like start working again and start grinding as much as I did. Because like they were really self-motivated themselves, working like we're doing jujitsu literally 2 hours like every single day, including like weekends and everything. My buddy had a private gym, and we would go over there. That's where actually the Golden State Champs actually train here in New Mexico. And upstairs in their gym,
I
they
think I
had
know
mats.
exactly what you're talking about.
It's called the Power Plant.
Yeah.
It was like it was really really cool, and we used to just go up there and train for like 2 hours every single day and just hang out.
Yeah,
It was
that's
really
crazy.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really interesting point that you bring up about how, being active like that and getting into a routine of doing that, it kind of like propelled and catapulted the rest of your life back into high gear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean that's why I do what I do, right? That's why I still I'm slowly but surely getting myself back into weightlifting, because kind of like what you just said with losing weight. Right before I started working with MK and all them, I was training for a physique competition, and I was just shredding weight. Right, I was trying to cut down because the competition was like three months away.
Right.
At the time, and it was going pretty well. Cut was going pretty well. I was still healthy, eating properly, working out like fucking crazy, and God, like right around Christmas time, I just had a steep drop in my weight. And because the plan was like I had started cutting when I was at 193, and that was like back in September when I started doing like a slow cut, right? September, October.
Mm.
And so I'm kind of shorting down weight, going down, and I ended up stopping like the third week into January around, because right around Christmas my fucking weight just went like off a cliff, and by the end of it I was like 158, 156 with still like 2 months to go to the competition. I was like, if I keep shredding weight like this, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna be a human. I'm gonna be a skeleton.
Right.
And that was scary. And by visual standards, I mean, I looked fucking good. I hadn't seen my abs since I was in like college. Like, I hadn't seen my abs. I was like 18, 19 years
Good
old.
feeling, right? Look in the mirror and you're like, oh yeah, there they are.
Well,
I knew they were there.
And typically it would be a good
somewhere.
at first it was. I was like, oh, right. But then like by the end of that little phase, I was like, oh my God, is this fucking worth it, right?
Right.
But now
It's intense.
now that I've gotten back to a healthy weight, and now that I'm really training hard again, getting back on a diet again, like that, I do find that keeps me on a better schedule. It keeps me more regimented throughout my day, because it just if I work out in the morning, the rest of my day is just like 100 miles an hour.
You propel, yeah.
Exactly.
You have this momentum that you start off with, and you just ride that throughout the day.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and then
of
if I
course.
work out in the evening, I have something to motivate me through the day, like to get to,
Mm-hmm.
right? I got to get all my shit done so that I have time to go do that in the evening. And because like I know the type of person that I am when I'm not active, when I'm not working out properly, when I'm not eating properly. And I just I don't like being that person, you know? I'm slow, I'm sluggish, irritable, easily annoyed, shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't like being that person, I can only imagine what the people around me feel like.
Right.
So I was
Yeah,
like, I don't
of
want to be
course.
that fucking person. And that's honestly part of the reason why I ended up leaving the company with you guys, is just because we were working so many long days, and then I was doing this, and then I wanted to weightlift as well. Like I had a hard time balancing my time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, fuck, this ain't it.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
ain't it. Cause yeah, like even I remember first starting, I know I probably came off like an asshole to the people who like were originally there, but I was like, what the heck is going on? We weren't leaving the office until like 7:00 at night, 6:45, 7, like 7:15. I remember like my third or fourth day, I was like, can we get on with it, please? Like,
I understand.
because we were all just like sitting around hanging out. I'm like, do you guys not have anything else to do? Like,
Yeah, I remember you asking that. Yeah.
do you guys not have anything else to do? Like, if you don't, that's cool. But I do, and I know that because I remember another guy that we were working with. He was kind of just sitting there. He's like, yeah, I kind of feel the same way, man. And I was glad I wasn't alone in that. So one question I was going to ask you a little earlier, and I just remembered it. And you kind of brought it up a little earlier as well, the retention, right?
Mm-hmm.
The retention of having employees. What is, because you're building your own team,
Mm-hmm.
and a part of being a leader is you have to and that's honestly what I commend MK on a lot, is because she's consistently enthusiastic about what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
She's consistently in the moment and there, right? And because I remember when I had my first interview with her, my whole thing was because remember they asked me what's leadership to you,
Mm-hmm.
and my whole thing was you need to be able to tell the people you're leading why they have why you things are happening the way they're happening, right? Why do they have to show up at the office at this time? Why do they have to use these systems? Why do they have to say like your guys' pitch?
Right, communication.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Give them the why. And she's very good at doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So now building your team as yourself, what are the strategies you're using to keep your people motivated, to keep them in? Because I mean, for some people, and honestly I can speak for myself, 100% commission is hard to maintain sometimes. So how do you keep people motivated in doing that and retaining pretty much?
Well, I mean, team retention falls into a lot of different things, and really, what I'm learning is really putting the other person's goals first, right? Like, I'm to be a leader here. You have to understand your team. You have to understand what drives them, and you have to tailor your message to them based off of what's important to them.
No, for sure.
And that's really what it falls down on, and respecting like what their wishes are to like a certain degree, right? Like some people are very money driven. There's some people who are very like career driven. Like I just want to like have a career where I can live, and you have to really tailor your message to that. But a very important thing about being a leader is having a plan and like being able to execute on that plan, because like you can be somebody who just like goes through the system, just follows along. But like for the people who like have a plan and like know what they're doing, have the confidence, that's really what it falls down on is confidence, right? Getting people to follow you just requires confidence, because people are they're attracted to that, and they want to know like, why is this guy so sure, right?
Yeah.
And like then that's when they get interested.
No, for sure.
Right? And so that's what it really falls down on. And as everybody knows, like you have to be a leader, not a dictator.
No,
right? So
for
you
sure.
have to be one who's actually going to go out there and like fight for your team, and then also like do what they're doing too. Because like if you're not going to do it and you're just going to dictate, people get really turned off by that.
No, 100%.
There's like 6 different types of like leaders and like how they like teach people and stuff like that. Like there's dictators, there's like people who are very emotional based and they like connect with you, and like each one has like its positive and each one has its negative. But a really good leader knows how to switch from different types of leadership based off of like what's going on.
Right. No, and you're totally right. And you don't want to be a tyrant. You don't want to be that person that just kind of like the point and click method, like go do this, and just,
that really demotivates your team.
Exactly. And you can't remove yourself from the situation, right? And you can't just like be sitting in the background watching. I think that you brought up a really good point about doing what you're asking of your team to do.
Right. Yeah. And confidently too. Like you can't just be like, fine, I guess. If you're not going to do it, I guess I'll do it. Right.
No.
That would definitely like turn them off. Right. So like you have to be able to do the work and show them how to do it properly. You know what I mean? And that was like the conversation that I had not too long ago with like all the leaders in there, that like, no wonder we can't keep employees there at the office.
Yeah, so set the stage for that. So what kind of brought that on? How did you execute that little, coming to Jesus moment, it sounded like?
So really, I mean, MK, it's the type of leadership that MK has. She's very emotional. And when you have like an emotional based leadership, it really can cause people to be accepting if they're slacking in a certain aspect. So like when you want to bring like emotional type leadership, that one-on-one connection with them, that's when you like lose distrust. So if you've lost distrust in your team, the way to build that trust back is being vulnerable and being open. As you know, MK is. She's very vulnerable and she's very open.
100%, yeah.
The problem with that is that if people are not doing their job properly in any way, because she's so vulnerable and because she's so open, subconsciously it almost it's okay to have that type, like those lacking abilities. You know what I mean?
You start like subconsciously building complacency.
Yeah, it's really, I guess, that's the best way to explain it. And so the counter to that is to now show the importance of why they're doing what they're doing, right? So like showing them their place and why they're there and how to get them to expand to motivate them more. So you're like sitting there and you're having a conversation with them, and you're yeah. So we're here as leaders. Our job right now is to mentor and teach. And if you're just going out there to hit your sales quota each and every day, you're failing as a leader, right? Because that's not what we're here to do. We're here to grow and mentor people each and every day. And because we're not doing that, we're failing. So this is how we need to now grow. Is now we need to start like getting on it. We need to be growing each and every day so we can start mentoring other people. Right? Because MK is not going to invest into anybody unless if you give her a reason to invest into you.
Which is fair. So, how do you think that was received going about it? Because I mean, it sounds like to me that is what the situation calls for. If you're hitting a certain boiling point, you have to be like, all right, this is like no shit. What's going on? This is the problem. We need to solve it.
Yeah, and so like it was kind of one of these situations where MK, of course, she said this stuff, right? But like it sometimes takes somebody else to say it to really like spark an idea. And there's like some leaders in there too, who the idea that they are a leader hadn't like clicked in their mind. Yeah, they were like still just going out to like hit bell and like hit their quota. But the idea that they're actually here to now mentor and teach and lead a team hadn't like shifted in their brain yet. So when I went up there and I like said that, there was a lot of people there that like, yeah, you're right. Like, no wonder we're not like they're helping and mentoring the new hires. Of course they're going to leave, right? They don't feel like they're a part of something, and it's because we're not doing our job. And some people like really took well to that. And then some people were like, oh shit, like I am a leader. Like I need to start stepping on my game. And then there was some who had like the more closed mind where they just thought I was attacking them instead of like taking that feedback and building on top of it.
Right. And I feel like it would be a much different story if you were to if you came at the problem and like from the get-go, it was, listen, assholes, this is what's going on, and attacking at it that way from the beginning, but you only had that approach, right? Talking to people, I can understand why people would be like, hey, he's kind of a prick. Like, why is he?
It's at its highest peak when it was really bad.
Exactly.
And so the nice thing, though, is that I kind of have like a sense of seniority there now because I've been with the company now since it pretty much started, like maybe a week after MK started.
Yeah, you were our second.
And because of that, and because I've been to every single event possible, I kind of like established this seniority to where I can go up and like speak and they would listen to me, right? I'm not like some new hire that's like, yo, what's going on, right? And then people are like, who's this guy?
Right, exactly.
No, I have that status there, so I'm
no, and that's good. And that's a really, I think that speaks to your character. Like that's a very important thing I think regardless of tenure, I mean, tenure is very important, no doubt. But regardless of how long you've been there, because I mean, the entire process itself, like that whole company's been there for a little over, we're in the middle of April, so we're 3.5 months. They've been in operation now. So it's still very much at its genesis. But being able to establish yourself as someone that knows what they're talking about, you have the confidence in yourself to lead others, and then you can, like I said, you can give people the why, like why is what I'm saying worth listening to,
right?
Let alone worth digesting.
Yeah, I'm not like just going up there and saying you're all shitty leaders. I'm like going up there and being like, okay, we're not doing our job, we're not mentoring, and this is why we're not having employee retention, right? That's the why. We need to keep new employees, right? And so that's how I like kind of led that along.
Prior to this, this little, like I said, coming to Jesus meeting, what do you think your retention was of the new employees, those people starting out at the entry level?
Oh, I mean, like we have all the same leaders from the old office, so we didn't grow at all. We kept like Christy, and we had like Alexis, and that was like it. Everyone else had pretty much dropped off.
I'm trying to remember who those people were.
I don't even know if you know them.
I think I've met Christy.
Maybe. I don't know. But that's not important, right? We weren't keeping anybody. And that was an issue, and it fell back on the leaders. Because a lot of companies and a lot of people would be like, oh, yeah, it's the employee's fault why they didn't stay.
Yeah.
It's the employee's fault. No.
Which is
It falls back on the leaders. It falls back on the company. There's a reason why any company, if they're having an employee problem and there's just people like joining, dropping, it's not it's not the person's fault that they came and they left, right? It's the company's fault for not like showing them the opportunity, for not showing the value, really. And that comes down to anything that you do, right? And it's sales, right? If you don't get a sale, it's because you didn't show the value to them correctly to where they wanted to stay. And that's the same for employees. They leave because they don't see the value in something. And if we're not communicating that value and we're not like delivering on that, of course they're going to leave.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, I don't think like I don't think anything is an absolute. I do think there are instances where like, yeah, that was on the employee, not on us. We did what we could. And I think that's
Of
also,
course.
and you know,
Of
I
course.
don't think there's any absolute, but you make a good point. And I think that's why so many people, like you kind of asked me a little earlier, you want to get out of the corporate ladder. I think that's when you break it down, that is the chief reason why people want to finally like, namely in our generation, they are like, we're done with this corporate bullshit. We're wise to the act. We know you people don't care about us, and frankly, we don't blame you. Therefore, we don't want to play the game anymore.
Right.
So we're gonna do what we can to get out of that. Because yeah, if you work at some place, like, not talking shit about these companies, but if you work at some place like fucking Old Navy, Buffalo Wild Wings, just any big corporation, that McDonald's, Burger King, that's like multinational, billion-dollar industry, and they are established. Like, they are not going to go under anytime soon. They could give a shit about employee retention. Now, granted, I don't know what it's looking like now because of so many people being on unemployment and so many people not wanting to go back to work. But like, I know for a fact that pre-pandemic, they could care less because they know for a fact that their product is something people want, something that people are willing to spend their money on and go into debt over, and they're just going to keep making their money. And if Joe Schmo at the entry level doesn't want to play the game, fine, go play the game somewhere else. We don't really care. And I feel like that.
But I mean, like, companies like this, they do have to take in employee retention like very seriously too.
They do to a point, but like, I think it only expands as far as how does it affect me, right? So what I mean by that is, so let's say you have the local McDonald's, right? And you've got your entry level person, you got your shift manager, your shift lead, whatever they call it, and then you've got the person over them, and eventually the person that runs that store or runs that restaurant location. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, the person running that, running the whole operation, they're going to want to retain so they look good. But that person 1 or 2 steps above them, 3 steps above them, above the person running that restaurant, they're not going to care if Joe Schmo is there or not, because they've got so many other restaurant locations they're looking over, and they're like, well, if that fucks up, then I can just blame that guy. I'm not going to go out and blame this person. And so when they have that mindset, I feel like that could bleed on to that person running that restaurant, right? And like, oh, well, they don't care about me. I'm just a number, right? You always hear that a lot, right? I'm just a number, not a name.
And like big corporations, yeah. I mean, franchises too, but they all have their reports, right? At the end of the year, they have to report like their employee retention, and all that has a play into it. These companies are really, really big, right? So because they're so big, that one person who like joins and then drops off really isn't that big of a deal. But overall, if you can't keep your employees in a corporation, your corporation is going to start to break down and fall.
And see, what I think is super interesting, that is why I would love to have been like a fly in the wall from the beginning of Apple, because it's notorious and borderline well known how much of an asshole Steve Jobs was, and how he treated his initial employees. And the most vocal person about that has been Wozniak, where he's like, yeah, like, he stole most of my ideas.
Right.
And all that. But like, apparently Steve Jobs, like, even when Apple started like growing and growing and growing, he would just treat people very, very poorly.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems to that. Sorry to cut you off, but like there's a book that I'm reading about like Netflix and how they got started.
Okay.
Right, and they talk about their business culture and like what drove them to like overcome Blockbuster, right? Because like Blockbuster was this huge multi-million-dollar.
Have you seen the last Blockbuster on Netflix?
I have.
Check that. It's a good one.
I have seen
Liked
it.
a lot.
Yeah.
Continue.
But yeah, Blockbuster was this huge multi-million-dollar beast. And when Netflix was starting, they like maybe had like 100K in the bank, and they were just like
If that.
working with that. They had grown. So, do you know the story a little bit behind it? So, like, essentially, Netflix was actually trying to partner with Blockbuster at first.
Right. And
And,
Blockbuster told them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, like this isn't gonna take off, right? This is back in like 1997, I believe
Right.
it was.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, this isn't gonna take off, right? So Netflix was like, fine,
I remember seeing that in the documentary.
we'll run our own thing, right? And we'll see what happens. And so there was this point where like they had they had like 100 and something employees, if not more. And something happened where their revenue had just like tanked, and they had to like make a decision to like get rid of a bunch of employees to where they were down to like 80 employees.
And you're speaking about Blockbuster or
Netflix.
Netflix? Talking about Netflix. Okay, so started with 100, and now they're having to cut down. Okay.
Yeah, they like started with like a large amount of employees, right? And something happened with their revenue to where they dropped and they had to get rid of a lot of their employees. So what they did was they looked at all the top performers and they looked at the people who were like lacking in performance. They ended up getting rid of course, their weakest employees. And what they saw was amazing because once they were down to 80 employees, this was the lowest that they'd ever been in terms of their employee amount ever since they've been growing. They noticed that those people who were holding back the top performer employees was actually dropping their production by like 30 to 40%. So once they dropped down to 80 employees, that's when they started making the most revenue they'd ever made in their lives. So when you have like these big corporations and you're able to take out the people who are holding back the company, even though you're now like down so many like people, your production will actually start to increase by like 30 to 40% again.
Well, you want quality over quantity, especially when you're starting out.
Absolutely.
You want quality.
And
That's
why-
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you need like high level performers in a company. That's why it's important to have employee retention, because if you're getting on like these top performers and they're dropping off within a week, well, that's an issue, right?
Sure.
We want to keep our top employees. We want to keep our top performers so they're not going to our competitors.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes down to.
Right.
And it's very important for small companies, especially small companies, but also corporations as well. That's why you have like board of directors and all that. Like the top of the top are up there, but that's why you have to climb the corporate train, right? You start at the bottom, but you work your way up to be one of the top.
Right. And I think, looking back, my first interaction with what Netflix is now, I hear that you can still order DVDs from Netflix, but primarily Netflix is a streaming service.
Absolutely.
And I remember my first encounter with Netflix, the streaming service, was we had it and we decided to add it to our plan. I was like in middle school maybe. And I was getting DVDs in the mail and I was addicted to that old show, Dexter.
Cartoon Network.
No. Like
Or
Dexter,
talking-
the serial killer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was like, wait, Dexter,
Yeah.
Cartoon Network,
Yeah.
but no, okay, I hear you.
Way too young to be watching that show, but I was addicted to that show, right? I absolutely loved it. But then I noticed that I was ordering the DVDs and they started doing the streaming service, and I'm pretty sure it was Dexter that got onto the streaming service too. And I was like, oh, well, I don't have to order DVDs anymore. It's right there. Cool, awesome. Netflix online, click. And looking back on the business model of Netflix, when it made that jump from you don't even have to get out of your door to watch, to get a movie from the video store, you don't even get out of your couch. And I think that's the name of their business, like the name of the game was just, how can we make this so impossibly convenient, right? And it's very obvious in hindsight that would have been the killer to Blockbuster, right? Now people are starting to look back at it and kind of feel nostalgic about it. That's why the last Blockbuster documentary was so popular. It was a very nostalgic thing.
It's funny that
it.
Netflix is hosting that.
And Netflix is hosting it, right? It's like, here's how we killed our competitor, and this is what they're doing to try and survive. A one little storm, like what, Arkansas, Oklahoma?
It's more of a gimmick.
Yeah.
I think it's like more of a tourist attraction.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is now for sure.
Yeah.
Ran by the one family doing the one thing.
I don't even know how they make enough money to stay open.
Well, now I feel like this was like their lifeline, getting that documentary out. Now I bet people are flocking to them now.
Maybe, possibly. It's just like,
Not in like fucking crazy numbers, but enough
Of
to
course
like
not.
boost them a little bit.
yeah, no, Blockbuster definitely had its chance, but the thing is that their culture wasn't designed to be innovative. So they like that. That's what their problem was that they didn't have a culture that could be innovative. So if they even tried to switch over online, they actually would probably still have failed.
Do you really think so? If they would have bought out Netflix.
Okay, well, okay, so if they had bought out Netflix, that's a different story. But if they tried to compete with Netflix as they were already growing,
Oh yeah, no.
their culture wasn't centered around innovation. They were just like maintaining because they were making so much money, and because they were just maintaining and they didn't have an innovative culture. Even if they tried to switch over and start being more online, it would have just like it would have been too much.
No,
and
I-
they would have had to
yeah.
shut down. And that's kind of like what happened to a lot of other companies like Toys R Us and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They didn't have an innovative culture. And that's the cool thing about Netflix is that Netflix was founded upon the idea of being innovative, of
Right.
being like, okay, anything can change at any time. Right? So, and that's the kind of idea that they had. They had this free mindset where like, okay, if this happens, then we're going to change this. If this happens, then we're going to change to this. And that's what drove their production. And then on top
Yeah.
of having these top performers in there, even if it was 80 employees, they were still skyrocketing their numbers like crazy.
No, for sure. And then like you look at the landscape now for streaming, and I went over this. I recorded like 2 weeks ago with one of my buddies. Like there's fucking Netflix, Hulu, Paramount Plus, Amazon Prime. They have a streaming service now. Disney Plus, HBO Max. I'm sure there's some that I forgot. Even in this massive landscape, Netflix is still the leader, and like I believe they were the first ones to get into like the voice activation on your phone. They were also one of the first platforms where you could they were one of the first ones where they got programmed into like the
Just making it seamless.
yeah, so you
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
like Netflix play blank onto your like TV remote if you had one, or like your iPhone or whatever smartphone you use.
Right.
I think they're one of the first people to do casting too.
Probably,
Casting is I fucking love casting.
And-
It's so easy.
And that's the thing about like once you have so much momentum in a company and they have so much money and they're built on innovation, like the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Right? That's why Amazon's freaking taking over right now. Is
Yeah.
because like they just have so much momentum, yo. Like there's nobody that can compete. It's to the point where I was just listening to somebody the other day where they're actually the government's probably gonna have to step in
Yes,
on Amazon.
100%. Well, because of Jeff Bezos and how fucking rich he is. Like
It's like literally to the point where it's pretty much a monopoly.
that dude got so rich that when his wife divorced him, she became the second richest woman in the world. That is how fucking. And then he stayed the richest man until Elon came in and beat him by an inch. After they launched that like fifth shuttle or whatever, that kind of like knocked him up a bit. But yeah, no, I heard about that because now what Amazon is doing, and again, if I had my buddy here like I normally do to pull stuff up for us, Amazon has a pilot grocery store. You saw that, right? Yeah, and
It's gonna start competing with like big names like Walmart. Well, maybe not Walmart. Walmart has its own market.
they're gonna be competing with them within the next 5 years.
I wouldn't say they're gonna compete with Walmart. Walmart's actually doing really good competing with Amazon. Yeah, they're actually being very, very like competitive.
Well,
with them.
what's nice about Walmart is that it appeals to working class, it appeals to lower middle class, and it like Walmart's always gonna be there. But if you ever hear complain about Walmart, right? What's the complaint? There's too many people. It's dirty.
It's cheap.
It's
cheap.
Right. It's cheap. But like that's also the positive. So what I think is going to end up happening is whenever those so people who don't know about the Amazon grocery stores, basically what it is you walk in with a cart and you scan in with like your app or whatever the fuck it is that has your debit card or credit card on it. And
Just walk out.
yeah, and in the cart it has
You can't steal shit. Like,
it has like a screen, and whenever you put stuff in the cart, it comes up on the screen how much the price is at the racks. Like if you're getting like a box of rice or you're getting like fruit, vegetables, whatever it is, there's like Amazon reviews of the product. It's crazy. And then you walk out and you pay and you're done. I think once
you don't even pay. Like literally, you walk out of the store
and it charges you.
It knows what you have in your basket.
Exactly.
It knows what you have in your hand, everything, and just charges you as soon as you walk out.
You're gonna have such a quick, like it'll be a novelty at first because it's so fucking bonkers that people will be like staring around.
But again, going back to the automation that we were talking about earlier, it's gonna be so automated. You're not gonna have workers or anything like that.
Right, exactly. But once the novelty kind of wears off and people just get in and get out, it's going to be so much faster than a Walmart, and that's going to start taking away, I think.
It is, but the reason why I say that Walmart has its own is because I don't even think Amazon wants to compete with Walmart. I really don't, because Amazon is going to be, yes, they are competing, but I think Amazon is still more upper class than what Walmart would be when it turns to the stores.
No, I totally agree. At first, they will be,
like
for sure.
Whole Foods. Like if you're walking to the Whole Foods, they're they're not cheap, right?
No, yeah, for sure.
And walking to a Amazon store, you're gonna have a luxury of being able to go in there and walk out and just have everything charged instantly. That's a luxury that people are gonna have to pay a little bit more for.
Well, I think what's smart that Amazon is doing now, though, is they're setting up so many of those different. There's two different kinds of Amazon stores. It's like the distribution center, and then it's like a connection center, pretty much, right? Where they just bypass post offices altogether. And a package can go from one place to one Amazon store to another Amazon store, and then it gets to a post office. But they're setting up so many of those across the country that when I feel like their plan, this is just me talking out of my ass and theorizing, but I would set up as many of those as humanly possible, and then once you hit that goal, then you start opening the grocery stores, and you already have your own distribution centers. And you supply your stores that way, so it's so much quicker, and you can eventually cut down on.
They're going to be very self-sufficient too, because that's right. They Amazon was starting to be like fully green and everything too. They're like pretty much like.
I know Facebook is now. Facebook's 110%.
Amazon is too
renewable energy
with their trucks and everything. Like they're gonna make everything just fully like to the point where it's gonna be like they have their own government, right? They're like gonna be running their own thing. They don't actually.
What's
need
scary.
Anything. Yeah, they're gonna just be this huge giant.
Yeah, no, that's what's scary, and like
you can't compete with it.
I'm not for government regulation. I believe very much in a small government. Let people do what they want to do, but like, I think we've gotten to the point now where, like, I still believe capitalism still can work, and that it can be properly exercised. But yeah, you just have people with so much fucking money that it's like, hey, man. Like
what? So much power.
Like, is there like what is enough, right? Like, okay, you've got enough money, right? But then also, who's allowed to decide that, or like what board of people is allowed to decide that, and then where does that go down? Because humans have a horrible track record of slippery slopes. With no matter what it is, right? It always turns out bad.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that like the government will actually never allow it to happen. Like monopolies are illegal for a reason.
Well, that's why they had to stop fucking Disney. Like, because Disney, when they bought out Fox or 20th Century Fox, so they buy out 20th Century Fox and they like dissolved over like 200 film projects, right? They're like, fuck you, we're not doing these. We're here for the fucking comic book characters. So they take all their movie rights, they take all like the X-Men, the Fantastic Fours, all that craziness, right? And they take all that. And then they were like, hey, we want Fox Sports too. That would be really nice if we could.
Yeah, they're just buying out everything.
Yeah, right? they're like, it'd be really nice if we could stream Fox Sports on Disney Plus. Because that's when they like first announced Disney Plus. And then Fox was like, "Fuck you, we're going to court," and they took him to court. And the Supreme Court had to be like, "If you literally cannot buy anything more." Like as far as I know, Disney's not allowed to buy anything else.
Really?
They are literally because they acquired LucasArts and they got all the crazy.
I believe that. Yeah, they just bought everything out.
They got all the crazy Star Wars shit, and then they bought 20th Century Fox, and they got like
they have the Discovery. They have literally everything,
and they got like all the Aliens properties and all that crazy shit. So now, then when they try to do Fox Sports, they get taken to court. Supreme Court's like, you can't buy anything else. If you buy another intellectual property, you will have a like in this landscape, you will have a monopoly, and that's illegal. Sorry, bud. And so like now. Disney is sitting at the proverbial 49.9999% ownership of the entertainment industry, which is fucking insane.
What do you do from there? Right, like,
I mean, they just.
I can imagine just like I don't even know who owns Disney again.
Disney. Disney is Disney.
There's no CEO.
The guy running the show, Bob Iger, I believe.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
just
Bob
imagine
Iger.
him like sitting on his like desk and be like, "What the fuck do I do now?" Like
Well-
he's just bored.
Well,
Like-
that's like so. That's I think the regulation you've got to find with Amazon and Jeff Bezos, because like as much as I
Right,
want
of course.
as much as I want to talk shit about that guy, right? I can look around and 90% of this shit in this studio is because of Amazon, because of the because of the service they provide,
it's just so easy.
the monopoly of distribution and partnerships that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to sell a product, you have to go through Amazon if you want to make any sort of money. That or eBay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even then, eBay was the shit until Amazon kicked off. Like, I mean,
eBay was pretty big.
like now I really only use eBay for collecting. But
Mm-hmm.
if I want any like I used eBay for like some startup stuff here, right? Like my very first microphones, my very first cameras. But like all like the cool shit, that's all Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't trust eBay. Just because
Yeah, no. So like, yeah, and that's what the nice thing about Amazon is that it's so streamlined. It makes it so easy. Just go and you can even set up like things that show up your doorstep like every month, right? Like cat litter. I just recently like signed up to have like my cat litter at my front door like every month or something like that. I don't even think about it.
And I used to have it set up. I need to get back on it, but I canceled it because Costco is running a fucking crazy sale. But on my protein, I used to have it to where once a month they just ship me protein. It was a
Yeah.
fucking subscription service, and I got like
nice.
$10 off.
Yeah, and then you even get like a discount on it.
Yeah. So it's like, oh well, I fucking might as well, man. I'm gonna do it anyway.
This was a failure of Amazon, but do you remember the buttons? Like you can like, oh yeah, I'm out of trash bags. Press a button and it like buys it for you.
I've never heard of that.
Really? Yeah. Amazon was giving it away for free, I think, and you can just get these buttons, put it like in your laundry room, right? And you're like, oh, I'm running out of detergent. Boom, press a button, it'll show up on your doorstep.
That's scary.
Yeah, like how it was a failure. Like they did try to make it work, but like no one actually used it.
See, what I'm waiting for is so you've got like the smart refrigerators, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm waiting for when AI gets so intelligent that the AI on your refrigerator, when it eventually comes
Why would
to
your refrigerator have AI?
your washer, exactly. Why would it? But it does, right?
Probably,
Your
yeah,
washer
yeah.
and your dryer, right? So, for instance, let's say you've got Joe Schmo, and in his refrigerator, the refrigerator's AI is able to take an inventory and catalog of the most frequent items in his fridge.
Dude, that doesn't even require AI. Like I can like design something like that.
Yeah,
easy.
but
Yeah.
it's gonna take a catalog of it. Joe Schmo's gonna come back from his 9-to-5 job, pull a Budweiser out of his fridge. There's only one more Budweiser left. That fucking thing is gonna order it, and more Budweiser will show up at
I
his
think
door
it's already
tomorrow.
like that's already kind of a thing in some fridge. Yeah, I think that's already like somewhat a thing.
See, like without him even
There's
knowing.
fridges that have computers. Like I worked at Lowe's for a while. There's like fridges that have computers on them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
just,
So
like,
the
order shit off of
touchscreen
it.
shit, right?
It's like freaking crazy.
That's
yeah.
that's fucking bananas.
See, that would be dope. Like I'm actually kind of down.
I don't know. Like I want. See, and again, tinfoil hat. But I want to stop Skynet from even happening. Like I don't want Skynet to be a thing from the fucking Terminator movies. Like that's where we're headed.
What is Skynet again?
Have you seen Terminator?
I have.
Skynet is the company that so there's Cyberdyne Industries, right? And Cyberdyne Industries was the big like Tesla pretty much of the Terminator universe. But these guys created solely AI, didn't do cars, but they were doing AI stuff and they were contracting out for the military.
Right.
And to do that, they subsidized it into Skynet. And Skynet was a bunch of weapons defense systems and it got all the way up to being nukes, right? And so basically what happened was the fucking robots became sentient and were like, hey, we're actually better than humans.
Oh right. Yeah, yes.
And
yeah,
they
I know.
fight the fucking Terminator Wars
Okay,
happened.
so what are we avoiding again?
So I want to avoid that. I don't
Right.
want, like
So
because this is what's gonna happen. I'm just saying right now. You see those videos of like where they're creating robots and the robot fucks up and they fucking kick it, or like every time you yell at Siri, like Siri, you piece of shit. Well, the robots are recording all of that.
here's
Okay.
the thing: is that like that's kind of inevitable. Like that will happen eventually.
What I think is inevitable is the fusion between humans and robots.
That's already happening though.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
Exactly.
Like-
No, exactly. But I think I think that's gonna be inevitable, right? Where it's like, so yeah, you can get a prosthetic arm or prosthetic leg at a very high end, right? The high end society can get it right now, and it works, right? But it's gonna get to a point where like people like you and I, the middle class, where we're gonna have access to. You want to upgrade your eyeball? You want to upgrade your fucking arm? Right? They're gonna make the $6 billion man in our lifetime.
Right. Yeah. Like people are gonna be opting into like taking off a limb in replacement for like a fiber optic.
See,
like,
exactly. And then so
ultra lightweight left arm. Right.
So what I want to avoid
Everyone
is
being like One Punch Man, just
exactly,
like knocking everybody out.
is
right?
like the full on machines realizing that they don't have human error and then taking over because their fucking AI is so strong.
But that is inevitable, right? Because
so you think computers are going to be what inhabits the earth?
Oh, absolutely. They're just so efficient. Like in the
Really?
moment that like they get to a point where they can think for themselves, which is actually not too far off.
Well, see, because
We actually should have the human brain mapped out by I think it was like 2030 because they're like working on like no, I'm wrong. They should have a rat's brain completely mapped out by the end of like 2030. And once we map out a rat's brain, that's when they're going to start working on the development of a human brain.
Jesus Christ.
And once we like have the human brain mapped out,
See,
I mean, that's when we can find out if consciousness is just in humans or if it can be done.
That's where government's got to stop, dude. That's where government's got to stop it right there.
Well, that's the thing is it won't.
It won't. It won't. But like, if I was
maybe it's possible.
If I was fucking supreme leader, I'd be like, no. You can create fake arms. You can create fake legs. You could create a fucking 15-inch dick if you want, but you cannot map out a human brain.
But that's just like the development of a society, right? And so this is one thing that Elon Musk was like discussing. He believes that we're like old, like there's a 30% chance that we're in a simulation, right? And there's the reason why is because like it's not far-fetched to think that this society is like the only one, and the way it's developing, and so we have machines right now. It's all AI that can run like millions of simulations at a time. And when we're running these simulations, we're actually seeing reflections of society within these simulations that we're running. So if we like large scale this, we can actually simulate life within the technology that we're making now, which doesn't make it very like far-fetched that we're in a simulation ourselves.
But as I understand it, the simulation that he was describing was basically we get so far advanced in the future that we're able to go back in time and like edit things.
So there's actually like there was like a study done that it's actually might be possible that it's not possible to travel back in time.
Okay. Well, because like
there's a lot to that.
Because he was saying like it's not like these people are creating a simulation like a Sims game. I can't remember like how he phrased it, but it was something to the effect of like our future civilization ends up like editing our past or some shit like that, so it simulates it. That's how I understood it. I could be completely fucking wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot of like theories out there, but the thing is that we know so little still that like it's impossible to really say anything. We recently had I think there was like the scientific discovery of like not discovery, but idea of traveling at the speed of light.
Right.
Did you like hear about that? Like that was kind of crazy.
No, I didn't.
Like the idea where like it might actually be possible to travel at the speed of light, but what you do is like you create this bubble. And like instead of you moving at the speed of light, you move everything around you at the speed of light. So like the idea is to have like this bubble in the space-time continuum where we're just sitting there and you now are going to have space move around you instead of you moving around space.
How is that easier than moving yourself?
Well, think of how hard it is to move at the speed of light, right? So what's easier than moving at the speed of light than to just like have everything else move around you?
This is just my like dumb monkey brain, but I would imagine just moving myself is easier than moving like one object is easier than a bunch of objects.
Right. But like as crazy as that sounds, it's not as crazy as you might think. And like as it's like
What the fuck?
it's very difficult to explain, and it's hard. It's even harder for me to explain it more. Like I haven't studied it fully, but the idea is there, and it's really really cool to think about. And like it even goes back to like ourselves, right? Like it falls back on us to like if we're even coming back to like our own success and stuff like that, right? We have to be it falls back on our mindset, what makes us like be successful in life, right? And instead of us like trying to conform to the world, we just have the world conform to us,
Which I think is
right?
horrible.
And that's the whole idea on
yeah.
like moving through space too, is you just have space move around you.
Right, which is as a side caveat. I just think that's fucking horrible, making the world conform to you, or no, making you conforming to the world, or like being comfortable. Comfortable is not fucking good. That's what I'm trying to get at. But like going back to what we were talking about, that's fucking insane.
It is insane.
That is insane. But like,
It is crazy.
I really think that we need to stop. Like, I'm always for like we need to continuously improve. We need to continuously innovate. Come up with new
We
things.
just have to grow as in society.
But like as far as AI goes, we cannot create our own destruction. Like there are so many movies about
we can though.
We can and we probably will, but we shouldn't.
and I'm excited.
We really shouldn't.
Things are gonna be so efficient. It's gonna be nice.
Because I don't want the year 3000 to roll around and the robots are all living like, oh, remember those humans? Those were crazy.
Okay, you know why? Like I'm kind of for it. Is because like humans are just like we're just like shit shows. We're just like always
But that's
fighting.
what makes us.
Like,
That's what makes us great. Is that
I mean,
we're
it's
shit
nice.
shows?
It's nice, yeah.
Because
but,
like if you let's say you have
it's
your
not efficient.
It's not right. Right. I would say humans at our best are like 75 to 80% efficient, right?
I guess that just gives light into my mindset.
But
though. You know what I mean?
but that gives you room for improvement, right? That's what makes the human spirit so awesome, is that you keep working and you fuck up. Like you keep fucking up for sure, but you do your best to succeed more than you fuck up. But with robots, well, first of all, in the scenario we're talking about, there aren't humans anymore. So I'm gone, right? All the shit I like is gone, right? So that's not good, A. But B, like, sure, the robots inherently could improve like their software or their fucking whatever it is. But like,
it's boring.
It's boring.
It would be boring.
It's boring. Like, here's the thing, because I believe that one day we'll be able to map out. I don't think you could ever map out 100% of a human brain, but you would map out most of it. But there, like with humans, there's always so much unknown going on, right? That's why new things are crazy, right? New projects, new relationships, new jobs, new vacations or trips you take, right? There's so much unknown going into that, because there's no there's so much more risk with humans, which is you can weigh the positive or the negative depending on what you're getting into. But like obviously something like getting into a conflict with another nation or like doing something like that.
But like, so I see what you're saying, like the free will to be able to like do whatever you want to do. Well, the thing is though, is that like even if we have AI, and let's say like humans are completely out of the picture here,
which is what I want to avoid.
Let's say like humans are completely out of the picture, and we just have like AI that's running everything. The thing is though, is that unless there's like one supreme ruler like running all of these machines, there still will be free will, right?
But that's the other thing too. With in the same notion that I don't think you'd be able to map out 100% of the human brain. I don't think they're like okay, here's the best analogy that I can make. I think robots will have the same amount of free will that people who believe in a deity will have free will. And what I mean by that is like me as a Christian, right? I know that I have free will and I can really do what I want, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also the idea that God has a plan. Mm. So do I have free will, or do I? How much do I align with the plan, or how many plans are there depending on what decisions I make? Right? Maybe the plan is just I end up at one spot in the end. Right? When my chapter closes and my book closes on my life, that was the plan to end up there. Now, how do I get there is weird, and then that's how you kind of get like personally. That's when I get into like a multiverse theory. But as much free will as I have right now, I think that's about as much free will as robots are going to have. Because yes, they'll have it programmed into them, but same thing, it's programmed, right? It's as much as they can get, and they keep improving and they keep detailing, but it's just about as much as like their supreme robot.
Well, that's the thing, is that we don't know.
Do you want the space heater on?
Sure.
Yeah, I got a space heater.
And see, that's the thing, is that I don't know if we do map out a human brain, if we can also simulate consciousness. And that's like the thing that a lot of people are like waiting to see, because eventually our technology will get to the point where we can actually start testing to see if like we do have like a higher thing that's like running all humans, like there's actually a God, and there's a purpose for our consciousness. Or if we do replicate a human brain, will consciousness happen or not? And no one knows that. And that's the thing that we're kind of waiting on. Once we understand, like, okay, now robots are starting to get a sense of self. Okay, now what's the meaning of life? Yeah. Right? Because if robots can get a sense of self and they know that they're alive and that they're capable of doing things, that like will completely change everything.
See, and that's scary.
That will like almost outrule religion itself if we can replicate consciousness.
I think it will enhance religion. But here's why I say that. The robots have their creators,
that would
right?
make us a god.
So, but see, the robots have their creator, right? So to them, we are a god. To them, right? But then maybe we did that because we were created by someone. So then we have a God.
Right.
What would break religion is if we found out our God had a God. That would break religion for sure.
That would break religion.
I think so, because like let's say again, let's say
it's possible.
Let's say Christianity, right?
It's possible.
Let's say Christianity is the correct religion. Let's just say it is, for argument's sake. You could insert Buddhism and Catholicism and Judaism, whatever you want to really put in there. Let's say Christianity is the right one, and there is that God. Mm-hmm. Now, in that religion, just like any other religion that believes in one deity, that's it. Everything starts and begins with that thing, right? That person, right?
Right.
But if you find out that thing that you thought this entire time was actually created by something else, that is when you start to dismantle our religions. And that's when you start to think, oh, shit.
There's no way we'll know. Right? Like,
yeah, there's only one way, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you start to kind of figure out, like, will we ever know what happens when we die? That's when you start figuring that shit out. Because if it is just a black screen and there is nothing, like, I don't think the human brain is meant to comprehend nothing. Like, have you ever done that? Just like sat down and thought about like what is nothing?
What'd you do before you were alive?
Exactly.
Nothing. It's just like, it's one of those things.
But then it's like, it's not you.
I don't know. Like, religion's like one of those very touchy subjects too. Because like I recently had like this very interesting conversation with somebody who's very logical, and like they didn't have a religion. They didn't believe that there was other gods or anything like that, because he was like talking about like how the Bible was written and how like everyone was just like fucking high and like drunk like back in those days. Like the bread that they used to eat would actually cause hallucinations. And that's like why a lot of the stories in the Bible are kind of crazy, like the burning bush and all that, because of the things that they ate actually caused them to be high and like have these crazy hallucinations a lot of the time. And that's an interesting idea.
It's funny you bring up the burning bush, because there's also a theory that the reason why Abraham, right? Yeah. The reason why Abraham saw God in that bush is because the bush was actually secreting DMT.
Yeah, and then there's like things like that too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then the way I kind of take that is, if it really was secreting DMT, right? Like DMT is what a lot of people would equate to why people see a light when they're dying, right? Because all of that just getting flooded out of the brain. So they see a light and it's like, oh, I saw heaven, I saw God. Okay, yeah, maybe you did, right? Maybe you really did. Or maybe there was just so much of that drug being released in your brain that it simulated that. So when you start saying stuff like, okay, well, that burning bush was secreting DMT, he inhaled it, and now this is what he saw.
Right.
Maybe that is a pathway to the higher power, whatever it is up there. Maybe that is how you get to it. And that's why we can only get it out of our bodies when we die.
And yeah, and so there was a study done, and it's actually on Netflix. There's a documentary. I think it's like, I can't remember what it's called, but it's exactly about like the visions that you see right before you die. And they did a study where they like took like a bunch of people who had died and came back to life, and like talked about like what they saw and what they experienced. And some of them were very different than others.
Yeah.
So like everybody saw like something different, but it was all like this out of body experience.
Right.
And like that's kind of why they had that idea of religion, where like they did have that out of body experience. But there's people who like did have this out of body experience, but didn't feel like there was like another God still.
Interesting.
And so like there's like all these different like experiences that they had, and they took it differently. But the only thing that is true is that it changed their life forever.
Yeah.
And like that's like the interesting part. But I don't know.
Oh.
It's like it's just one of those things where like religion is also there to like give hope to society.
That is a big thing. No, for sure. That is a big thing.
And like it's there's a lot of people who have experienced like that, like, yeah, my life has changed ever since I brought Jesus into my life. But it's also like an idea like there's the people who like it's difficult to say because there's such a diverse amount of people, and there's so many different religions. How can we say like one is wrong?
No,
because
for sure.
There's other religions where it's like, yeah, ever since I found this religion,
Exactly.
it's like changed my life.
No, and even as a Christian, I am able to allow myself to see it like that, and be like, okay, I believe what I believe, but I also understand why people view it that way. Because if you are going straight, because a lot of religion, and Christianity 100% falls into this. It's the idea of, yes, there is logic, right? You are applying some amount of logic, but you're also applying a ton of faith. A ton of faith.
It takes a lot of
faith. And faith, sometimes, more often than not, is not evidence-based. So when you take somebody that's like an atheist or really like an agnostic, right? They don't say there isn't a God, but they just don't believe, they choose not to believe in one. They have that same kind of response. And it's like, okay, well, you have the individual that's like, yeah, my life's been changed since I found Jesus. And you get them, and the another guy that's like, my life has changed ever since I found fucking Buddha, or I found the flying spaghetti monster.
In a way, it kind of gives them a purpose.
Exactly.
And then that's what drives them to like seek better things in their life.
Exactly. But
Right?
you put them all in a room together, and you're like, okay, well, why is yours not a placeholder and his is? Or why is yours correct and his is wrong, right?
Yeah, and you can't like devalue people that
Exactly,
way, right? Because
exactly.
they all have their own beliefs, and it's changed their lives in some way. I can even say, like, since I've been working with this other company, with MK and all them, that I've like grown in my mindset, and everything has changed, right? And so it kind of has that same effect with religion too, is that you go and your whole mindset's changed, and now you really do feel like there is something else there. But
Yeah.
I have also had like really crazy like spiritual things happen in my life. Like I've seen some weird things, right? And like I feel like there is another world that we just don't know. Like there's something with energy and just like spirits.
No, for sure, there definitely is, and like that's
weird.
well, see, that's why, like, in my lifetime, at some point, whenever I feel like I'm ready, I really want to try DMT. Way down the line when I've matured a lot more, because like there's a study that was done here at actually the University of New Mexico back in the 90s, and you can read about it in a book called DMT: The Spirit Molecule. And basically, what happened is they took 52 people at UNM. And they're all volunteers, obviously. And they're like, all right, we're going to separate all of you guys. And you're all going to fucking know how to talk to each other. I don't even think these people knew who the other participants were. Mm-hmm. Like, we're going to separate you from all the other people. And we're going to give you guys the same amount of DMT in the same environment, the same method. We're going to make sure you like break all that shit.
See what
very
happens.
Controlled and see what happens. And while there were some differences, they all reported at first seeing the fucking like the geometrical sphere, right? They all went to the waiting room and they spoke with a woman. Just some nameless, shapeless woman figure. They just knew it was a woman. They knew the energy was that very feminine. And then when they all broke through, they reported that they either spoke to God himself, and it was never God herself, so I thought was interesting. It was God himself. It was reptiles, some sort of like reptilian figure, gnomes.
I'm glad our God is a lizard. Yeah, dude.
Like
I hope like when I die and I like go to heaven, it's just a lizard.
You just see Mark Zuckerberg and his skin falls apart. It's a
Oh,
fucking
God.
reptile.
Mark Zuckerberg.
But it
God.
was like a gnome type figure, or it was clowns. Every single time.
Interesting.
Those are the only 4 responses out of like 52 people. And the fact that they were able to get 52 people to break through, I think is fantastic. Like, I don't know how the fuck they pulled that off. Because I know people that have smoked DMT and they're like, yes, I've done it. Or like, I did do it, but it was only like this and this. But what was interesting as well is like, these people are like, yeah, I was high for 8 hours. I was high for 10 hours, right? When in reality, they only got high for 10 to 15 minutes. And I think that's just bananas.
Just lose the idea of time.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely fucking bananas. But like being like, and that's why I want to do it. But that's also why like I know I'm not ready for it because I'm still kind of scared of it.
I don't think I ever want to do it.
I know I do just out of curiosity, but like, God,
I'm
that's
good.
You
I
don't-
just leave that until I die.
You wouldn't want to experience that just to figure out what else is out there.
Fuck no.
No, why not?
Because like there's a reason why things are the way they are, right? Like Mother Nature is like very intelligent. Like
Yeah.
the way like things have evolved and how it evolves is insane. We can't even map out the human brain, right?
Right.
So why would I synthetically try to do something that Mother Nature is there to protect?
Because okay, so I totally get that, and I it's almost convincing to me. But here's why I don't completely buy in. Because when you do something like you're evolving the AI, right? You're mapping out a human brain. You now have that. You now have it. It is tangible. It's permanent, right? Like you've got it. When you do something I feel like DMT, you don't stay there permanently. You kind of just like zip in and you're like, oh, fuck, and you zip back out. Now, I would imagine prolonged usage or repeated usage over a certain amount of time, I'm sure it's different for everybody, would permanently damage the brain. And it would really fuck you up, right? Now, that's on the person. That's on fucking free will. But I feel like
It's just like
being able to do it and get there
man.
temporarily.
yeah.
And like, I only want to experience that once. Because I feel like it's going to scare the fuck out of me.
And I just want to like, I don't want to do it. I just want to wait till I die. Okay?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to like, be on my last breath and already know what I'm gonna experience. You know, like that kind of sucks. That just like ruins death. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow. I haven't thought of it that way.
yeah.
Interesting.
I don't want to like know what that's like already.
Interesting. That's totally fair. That's totally fair. Huh.
It's just like it's like one of those things where death is already so anonymous to people. Like no one knows what it's like. No one knows what it's like to die.
What it's truly like to permanently die
Forever.
for real.
Right. And when you take DMT, you're like simulating that. And like I just don't like the idea.
And you're at least giving yourself almost like a roadmap if you do it right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like one of those things I just don't want to do it.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Spoiling your own death would be kind of shitty.
It would. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. Like I said, man, you're one of the most interesting motherfuckers I know. That's totally fair. But I
I'd
definitely
read stories. Like I like to hear about it.
no same.
It's cool to like hear about like how everyone has this unique thing. And you know what's really interesting is that like since I've worked with this job, um, I never thought about how similar but how diverse people are. Like you can really break down people into like 7 different personalities,
What?
and like
Is that the personality test,
something like that.
or is it 11 personalities?
I
in
don't
that
know. It's
test?
something like that.
Yeah.
And so people are very very similar, but everyone has like different experiences and everyone goes through
Well,
life
inherently,
differently.
that's what makes humans dope.
Yeah, it is like it's a cool like idea on how that works, and it's really hard for me to like believe that any one person's right, especially since like I've worked with this job working in nonprofits. Like people have so many different mindsets and so many different like personalities and like the way they think and how they
Right.
believe things. It's impossible for me to say like, oh yeah, you're right, you're wrong. You know, that's just like a more of like of
Yeah.
my own
Well, when you
morals.
well, no, for real, when you get into more
and
like deeper topics, for sure.
and
Yeah, when you start stepping outside of morality, you get starting into the theoretical. Yeah, for sure.
then you have like millions and millions of people who have died and all like have these different experiences. It's just like impossible to say anyone's right. And that's why you can't have any absolutes when you're talking about anything.
No, for sure.
And that's why like politics is so like difficult, is because there's so many different people with so many different backgrounds that it's impossible to say like anyone is
Well,
inherently correct.
I agree with you to a point. Here's my cutoff. This is very general. But nobody born in the 1940s should be fucking influencing our current government. That's just my opinion. And directly anyway. Because times have changed so very much. And it's very obvious that so many of the more elderly people in office right now, whether it's a presidency, a congresswoman or a congressman, or a House representative, like these people are so stuck in their ways. And it's like you are holding us back from so much progress right now. But because you want to hold on to what you think is right, or you want to, like, quite frankly, continue to be bought off by whoever the fuck is filling your wallet right now, to turn you from someone who's making, they make good money, but if you're a public servant making like $100,000, but you've got a net worth of over $3 million, whoever the fuck is paying you, you need to get the fuck out. Like,
That's hard to say. Only because like I've never been in like in a high office political position like that before, and there's systems and there's a reason why they run things certain ways, because like society is very touchy, and if someone who is too young and too unexperienced like steps into office and tries to change something,
right.
it can have like serious repercussions. Like just think about running a country. Right, think about what it takes to run a country.
Well, that's why
you make one minor change, you send like a certain amount of money more in one area in a society, and like you have to take away money from somewhere else, and all of a sudden like politics are like starting to change.
Well, that's why one person doesn't run a country. That's why we have you have a president, but the president's a figurehead.
There's a lot of people that are involved.
Yeah, if you have the cabinet members and the staffing.
It's so difficult and it's so touchy that like there's no way someone who's inexperienced can just like step in and be like, oh yeah, I know what it takes.
Oh, for sure. I'm not saying just I could fucking walk in and be like, I know what's best.
Yeah,
like, no,
right.
I'm not that guy.
Right.
But like, I don't know. Like, there's just some things that I look at and like, I'm not even a pot smoker, right? It's not my thing. But we just look at the studies of how medicinally marijuana has helped people. And like, it's some of the most productive. And I know a big argument that some people have is like, well, marijuana will make you lazy. Marijuana will, it's like the high society theory. It's like, well, everyone's going to fucking do it, so don't make it legal. Well, marijuana is such a common drug that I feel like if you made it legal, you really wouldn't see such a high spike. You would probably in the first 18 months, but I think just level out and go back to normal with the amount of people that are like partaking.
I understand.
You
Yeah, I
know?
mean, like marijuana is one of those things where
It's like, why is that illegal? A, but B,
Yeah.
why is that like a class 4 drug? You're equating that to fucking meth?
Yeah,
In what universe?
I don't know. It's just like I honestly I don't know enough about the politics of marijuana to like really say. I just know like very surface level like it it was like outlawed because like someone didn't like it or something like that.
Well,
Like it was like some stupid story and they just like kept going with it and
Yeah,
that's why.
yeah, it got outlawed back in the days of, it was just before Prohibition, because they wanted to control. They wanted to control the populace, and they were
Yeah.
like, okay, well, they outlawed it, and it didn't really affect the general populace of people.
Right.
So they were like, okay, well, we're gonna make alcohol illegal now, and that is when they gave rise to people like Al Capone, and you had the mafia coming up and the mobs, and they're like, well,
Right.
we're gonna do this anyway, and they actually hindered the society a lot more than they did help it when they banned booze.
Right. Any time that a government like takes something away, there's always gonna be a group of people that are gonna like be like, okay, I'm gonna now make a.
I'm gonna do it
business out
anyway.
of that."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think,
And marijuana is not even like one of the biggest problems that we have.
It's
right
really
now.
not.
It's a very small and minor problem, which is why a lot of states are like, okay, give it to them. Right?
Yeah.
That's not even the biggest problem. Like overall, if we're gonna think like macro, like worldwide, what a problem is, it's data security.
yeah, 100%.
Like
100%.
like data is what needs to be more regulated so that it doesn't get out of control.
Well, one of my favorite things that I've seen regarding Mark Zuckerberg is they had him on trial, right? They had him in a hearing, not on trial, I should say. They had him in a hearing, and one of the guys in the committee, he asked him, "All right, Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable telling us what hotel you stayed in last night?" And he goes, "No." And he goes, "Would you be comfortable telling us your wife's phone number or her home address?" And he's like, "No." Like,
Right.
the fuck?
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, so then why is it okay for the American people to do that to you? And why is it okay for you to make a business out of it? Now, granted, the clip cut after that, and I couldn't find the full source video. But, like, that's a very good analogy. And I agree. Like, actually, I think Facebook and Apple, they got into, like, a proverbial fist fight over, data security. Because Tim Cook was like, no, this is fucking enough. And Tim Cook, in one of the new Apple updates, I think like 3 or 4 months ago, maybe a little earlier, or sooner than that, they implemented a system where you could stop data sharing within the iPhone, right?
Yeah.
And so
That was
Zuckerberg,
pretty recent. Huh?
Zuckerberg was like, "Why are you doing this? Like, you're taking so
ruining
much
my
money from
plan.
me." Yeah, exactly.
You're ruining my ultimate plan, freaking Apple.
No, exactly. And Tim Cook was like, "You don't fucking need it. If it's their privacy and they want it, they should be able to hold on to it." And Zuckerberg, the defense he used was, "Well, you're hurting small business. You're hurting the perpetuancy of small business and their ability to outreach, and they're da 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 da." It's like, fuck off. No, you're not. That's like
He
saying,
doesn't care. He can care less.
He doesn't. Like, that's me saying, going to somebody who's
I'm sure there's a huge revenue like piece to that, but that's not like why.
Yeah, it's the way him using like, oh, you doing more data security stuff hurts fucking. You're hurting small business is like some guy saying, "Oh, well, I jerk off because it helps my prostate." No, that's not why you jerk off. Just if you're gonna admit to something, be honest about it.
Okay.
Like if Zuckerberg would have came out like, "Yeah, you're
So-
hurting my money," then it's like, okay, well, we know, but thank you for not lying.
What's more interesting than that is that yes, like Facebook does have a lot of freaking data on people, but like this is like the interesting thing that I always thought about, right? So like here's Facebook, right? They're at the face of everything, like news. Everybody is like, yeah, all eyes on Facebook,
Yeah.
right? What is he doing over there with all that data? Like we see you over there, right? But what's even bigger than Facebook?
Google.
Freaking Google. I feel like they're just this sleeping giant that's just like getting bigger
They are.
and bigger and bigger.
No, they for sure. Well,
and
I mean,
like, and everyone's eyes are on Facebook.
So a lot of people are paying attention to Google too. I think the problem with Facebook is, first of all, Zuckerberg has like the most punchable face on the face of the planet.
He does. Yeah,
That's the first thing.
His
right?
mannerisms are like very. He like has his hands like this. He's like looking around. He's like a. I don't even know. He's just always up to something.
Yeah,
it just looks like
he
that.
looks like the guy that doesn't get away with it. He's the guy.
Yeah,
He's the guy in
yeah.
elementary school that got in on the joke way
And
too
it pisses
late.
me off that he's getting away with it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
He's the kid that got in on the
Yeah.
joke a little bit too late. Everyone else backed out, and then he got caught by the teacher,
I
not
hate it.
everyone else.
I hate it.
Yeah, he's that guy. But like, I think the reason why people focus, on a very serious note, the reason why they focus on Zuckerberg and Facebook more than Google, people recognize Google, but I think they recognize Google as like a necessary evil. Because it's like, well, we need you. We need to search the internet and everyone uses you. Like, that's just not going to fucking change.
Right.
And
like Google literally knows everything about you.
Yeah.
Like,
but
it
then
knows
also
more
like,
about you than you know about yourself.
exactly. And then, no, that's very right because we have all the AdSense and shit like that. So then you look at Facebook though, and they bought out Instagram and they bought out WhatsApp. And so when that move came in and everyone they bought out WhatsApp and they figured out and everyone figured out what they're doing with that, that's why a bunch of people left WhatsApp and everyone started using Signal. Mm-hmm. Signal's still very a niche thing. Like if you go down the street, I'd say probably 4 out of 10 people know what Signal is. But everyone knows what WhatsApp is. Mm-hmm. Everyone internationally uses WhatsApp. I mean, WhatsApp was a key component in.
Yeah, it was big.
Did you ever watch that movie Parasite? Won Best Picture like 2 years ago.
I've heard the name, but I
don't
watch a lot of movies.
So part of the movie is it's a very poor family. I believe in China. It might have been South Korea. Either way, very poor family. And they live like in a basement tenement home. Mm-hmm. And they are so poor that they can't afford their own Wi-Fi. So they kind of leech off of the neighbor's Wi-Fi. And so when they're connecting, they're seen connecting with, and they even talk about WhatsApp. Mm-hmm. Because they can't afford a cell service. They were able to get the hand-me-down like iPhone 4, iPhone 5, and then they use WhatsApp, the free service, to be able to, communicate.
Right.
That's how big WhatsApp is, right? And so when I think that's the reason is Facebook started expanding a little bit. Because Facebook, outside of owning Instagram and WhatsApp, what else have they bought? They haven't really bought anything.
Right.
So I think they kind of saw that and they're like, okay, well, we can't expand as much as we'd like to, but we're going to make so much fucking money off this data anyway that who cares? Mm-hmm. So when Tim Cook came around, kind of gave him the middle finger, they're like, hey, man, that's not cool.
Right.
But in reality, it is cool. It shouldn't be fucking stealing data.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's one of those things where like even like the government's exploiting it as well. Like that we saw
that was the whole Snowden thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean like it's really, and that's the thing is that a lot of the data that Facebook has, you can actually access. Like I can access a lot of Facebook's data.
Well, it's a lot of it's public record.
Well, yeah, I mean, so there's that, but you have in programming, in web design. Oh man, why can't I remember what it's called? APIs. You know what an API is?
I do not.
It's kind of like a bridge almost. So you can use APIs to access all the data. So I can use, once I'm approved, I can actually use APIs to access all of Twitter's data. I can access all of Facebook's data.
Jesus
I can
Christ.
access like any data I want, really. And you can pretty much use it for whatever you want. It's
So
like this key. It's like a key they give you, and they're like, oh yeah, here you go.
So how do you get approved for an API then?
Oh, it's so easy. You just fill out a form. Yeah, like for Twitter, I got access to Twitter's data, and you just fill out a form, and you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna use it for school purposes, and anyone can really do it if you know how
But
to
there's got
program.
to be like levels of access they give you, right? There's got to be. There's no way they're like, oh, you filled the form out right. Here's the master key. There's no way.
I mean, yes, of course. I mean, there is some like security involved with it, but there's a lot of data that you can access just by its own,
Yeah.
and it's actually kind of crazy what you can use for it. Yeah.
Well, one thing that was scary for me is this is the anecdote that I give every time we're talking about like data sharing and really data theft or abuse rather, I guess would be a better way to put it. So me and my homies were hanging out one night, right? And we were literally trying to figure out what we're going to do for dinner. And it wasn't even his phone. My buddy goes, hey, Domino's is cheap. Fuck it. You want to get some Domino's? I'm like, I don't really know. Fuck it. I kind of lean back on the couch, grab my phone, start.
And then you see an ad on.
And
for
then I see a
Domino's, right?
fucking ad for Domino's on Facebook. And I'm like, Siri, you bitch. Like that shit is terrifying. Or
Yeah.
like, Like when they first started coming out with I guess effective cookies, where you could you look up, like for me, like I collect fucking like comic book statues, right? Or comic book like major books, and I go to the website and I'm looking at stuff, and then I go into like Instagram or Facebook and I see ads for the same thing I was just looking at.
Right.
It's like, fuck you, if I wanted it I would have bought it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting on like the idea of it, because like everyone feels like personally attacked when they see like, oh yeah, I was just researching about that and now there's ads coming up about it, or like, yeah, I was just talking about that and now there's ads coming up about it. Like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like uncomfortable.
I get why it's there. It's a very good tactic. Like I get why it's there. I think the reason why people feel attacked by it, or why people get uncomfortable, is they don't trust the source that it's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and the thing is that it comes back to like that, having a huge corporation. Everyone's just a fucking number. Like no one actually really cares about what you're looking up. No one cares that you're just watching porn like 5 minutes ago, right? Like you can do whatever you want. Facts. And like that data is there, and yes, I'm sure they're using it to help like put ads in front of you so you can spend more money. But I mean, what does it come down to? Money, right?
No, facts.
And that's all they're just doing, is like getting more and more money from you.
Well, see, what's scary is they don't trust the source of where it's coming from. They're not sure what parts of government are buying into their programs or buying into their companies. And so that's when it gets scary for a lot of people. It's like, okay, well, these big tech companies, they're stealing my data or they're abusing my data. Who in government are they giving it to? And what are they going to be using it for?
Okay, well, what are you doing that you're going to be concerned about that anyways?
See, exactly. So you have the people that are actually concerned about it, and you've got like the tinfoil hat.
And then you think like, okay, the FBI is like tracking and making sure everyone's staying on point, right? But like, really, just because like maybe you're like dealing drugs here, you're a small time drug dealer, even if you're making like maybe even $50K from dealing drugs, like the FBI isn't going to be on that. Well,
let me give you a great example. This guy, he's a podcaster. I forget the fucker's name, and I'd have it pulled up if I could, but they were just talking about it on Rogan's episode like 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. This dude wrote an article and put it on his Twitter, and it was basically a response to a meeting that AOC had with who the fuck did she meet with? She met with, it was a religious leader of some sort. And basically, apparently the interview she gave or had with this person, the responses she gave was like a fourth grader that didn't read the book and then went up to give the book report, right? Mm-hmm. It's very like blatant, very shallow, right, beating around the bush. And all he said was AOC's responses were disappointing and unremarkable. 30 minutes later, or no, it's not 30 minutes later, 24 hours later, police show up to his door. Ununiformed, unmarked, in an unmarked car.
Yeah.
They show up to his door, and they're like, hey, man, stop talking shit about AOC on Twitter. Literally. Mm-hmm. Like, stop making threats. And he's like, I didn't. Fuck you. And they're like, yes, you did. We have records of it, all this. And he's like, they end up getting into it. And they show me the records. And then they looked at it like, yeah, I didn't do shit. Fuck off.
Right.
So that's what's scary.
Yeah.
Is when you start speaking out against popular interests, when you start speaking out against politicians. Like, that's what makes this country, that's what makes this country great. Is so when you start chipping away at that shit, that's when it gets problematic. Like, for instance, there's another story about these guys in a group chat. They were sharing memes, and then one of them got fucking busted, and they charged this dude with they charged a couple of them with conspiracy with intent, because they were sharing fucked up memes about the government, where they have no intention of doing it, but because they were sharing it within a group chat, and the group chat got monitored by Facebook, they kicked down a couple of guys' doors and charged them. Like, that's a bit much.
Yeah, and so, like, there's a thing where people can abuse it, and, like, the government, it's possible. But the thing is, like, you hear these stories, right? But the government doesn't just, like, do stupid things, right?
I don't know about that.
So, like, when they make decisions like that, you hear, like, oh, yeah, they were just sharing a couple memes. Right, the government's not going to storm into a building because you share a couple memes.
So I understand what you're saying.
There's always more to the story that doesn't get released into the public.
This is also the same government that caused Ruby Ridge and Waco to happen. That's the problem. Is people look at the track record of the government infringing rights on or infringing people's rights, and they're like, it could be me. That's the problem.
And so, yes, so there is that side of the story, but you also have to think about how much like good the government's actually
And there is a
doing,
lot of
too.
good.
There's way more. And then there's these just outliers that like the public gets their hands off, misconstrued the story a little bit, and then blow it up, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, like our data's taken like just everywhere, and like we have no privacy and blah blah blah." It's because the media puts that out there, but the government's really doing like way more good with it than anything else.
And
And then so like really, and we'll keep going with that.
Yeah.
What's really scary is when other people, that's not the government regulating it, when other people get a hold of this data and start doing other things.
like other countries. Right.
Well, so you heard about Cambridge Analytica, right?
It rings a bell.
So this was a company I think started back in 2010, maybe 2011, something like that. And they got shut down. They started out, I think, somewhere in Europe. And what they were doing was they were, you know, those tests that you take on Facebook. And it's like,
Yes.
like take this test and find
What
this out about you.
personality are you from the fucking Marvel movies or what
Right.
Disney princess? Yeah.
And so what they were doing was they were like having like a bunch of these tests. They had psychologists create these tests so that based off of the answers that you'd give, they can find out what kind of person you are. And they were using that information to display certain types of ads to you.
Mm-hmm.
And the ads that they were running at that time were, I can't remember, it was during a presidency. And they actually hired Cambridge Analytica to run their ads because they were running ads specifically towards who you were.
Right.
They were like finding out exactly who you were, what kind of mindset you had and everything. And so they would run ads tailored to that so that they can actually manipulate your mind.
Right.
And that's what actually they proved, that Cambridge Analytica alone had a sway in the presidential election because they were using the human psychology against everybody.
And that's what's scary.
That's
Like,
what's scary. I
yeah.
would rather have the fucking like government like making sure that like shit like that isn't happening, and maybe there's a few outliers versus like having companies like that manipulate you.
So I agree. Like, there's always going to be human error, but like, I don't know. Like, So okay, TikTok, right? There was a big controversy over TikTok because, and this is still true, like they're ran by a Chinese corporation. Mm-hmm. And the fear was that the Chinese government
Had too much control.
was getting
like,
access to American data. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that is horrible for numerous reasons.
Right, of course.
And so they looked into it, couldn't shut it down. I forget what the reason was. But if you look into the company, they are a lobbyist, like their version of a lobbyist for the Chinese government. Like they're in workings with them. Mm-hmm. So the more American data gets put into that, the more the Chinese are able to get, and that's what's scary too. So I would rather have the government regulating stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like if they, there needs to be, I think, in our government a lot more transparency. Now I get things that can't get released to the public for fear of mass panic or like national security reasons. Mm-hmm. Obviously, right. Which I think, on a side note, is really interesting that in that last COVID bill, or last like 2 COVID bills they put in, the government starting on January 1st had 180 days to release everything they know about aliens. I thought that was interesting that was in there. Mm-hmm. Just, you know, that would be fun to see in like June. But
right.
But there's things that need to be hidden. I get that. But because it was still when Trump was in office. So if Trump would have just said, "Fuck you, we're shutting down TikTok. We're gonna piss off a couple 12-year-olds. Who cares?" We shut down TikTok, but then his cabinet, or not his cabinet, but he would have came out with the specific, specialist that he had and been like, "Hey, you're mad, but here's why we did that."
I respect it.
I would have been
totally
like,
cool with it.
Yeah, I would have been like, bet. Okay, cool. Thank you for like preventing a fucking national security issue. But yeah, man, like
data war is like bigger. Like we're gonna like fight for data before we fight like with missiles. You know what I mean?
I agree. Data is the pathway to missiles. Mm-hmm. The moment they're able to hack into those launch codes, it's kaput.
Oh yeah, but that would never happen. The reason why there's specific like security things.
Well, right.
people literally have to be there to launch a missile.
Exactly.
It's not like I hacked into them. Let's send this nuke. Right.
Well, right.
It's
Exactly.
it's never
Exactly.
gonna
But like
happen that way.
it's still a worry that something a little bit lesser than that could happen.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
problem. And I mean, like, granted, so I agree with you. There has to be that human like interaction for it. But like, did you watch the new version of Justice League, the new Snyder Cut Justice League?
I came back from Georgia and I sat down to watch it.
Yeah.
And I watched like the first like half of it, and then I was so exhausted I passed out.
I don't
didn't
blame
get
you.
to see the ending or anything.
It's a long commitment, but do it. It's dope.
Yeah, I rented it too, and I couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it's dope. But anyways, did you get to the part where they're explaining Cyborg's powers?
no.
Okay, so there's a part where there's a voiceover from Cyborg's dad, and he's basically breaking it down for Cyborg what his powers are. And,
Okay.
and Cyborg goes into this like technical universe and this is landscape, and he's like, yeah, like you can do all these things, like our entire digital age, we're married to it, and it's now at your fingertips. You can manipulate the market however you like, and it shows him like walk into like a holographic bank, and he sees like all the bank accounts of the world, right? And they're just like in these giant stacks of money, and he sees like this one bank account with like a little bit of money, and he's able to see like who it's attached to, the social security number, where due to facial recognition where this person has been, and he's watching, and that it's a single mom that's like at a diner, just got evicted, and he just goes and gives her like $100,000. And then,
Cool.
yeah, it's
Dude,
legit,
heck yeah.
dude. It's super emotional. Like, it's legit. And then like he steps out of the bank and he walks into this landscape of just nukes. And he's like, yeah, you can now like control all our nukes. Have fun with that. And it just shows him like he like launches them and then throws them away.
Right.
He doesn't do it in real life, but like he's just like the simulation of what could happen. And then the guy's like, and I think this is a super important thing that needs to be imposed on our tech companies. His dad goes, the challenge with your powers is not doing it. The challenge with your powers is not doing it. Not falling into temptation to use all these things for not only bad, but for your own gain.
Right.
You know? And that's what's scary, is these tech companies have gotten so fucking big. Jeff Bezos has gotten so fucking rich that like, I really do believe that like you get to a certain point of being rich that the law doesn't apply to you to a certain point. And I think, and that's not saying like if Jeff Bezos got caught red-handed in a murder, they wouldn't arrest him or whatever. But like, you know, what if they arrested?
Money is power, of course.
Yeah, it gets to a
Right.
point. I think Jeff Bezos is going to get to a point where if they caught him fucking red-handed, actively stabbing somebody to death, that he would go to the unknown prison, right? And we wouldn't just hear from him, but he's just chilling on a fucking island somewhere that the government sent him to for like however long, and he got off on good behavior. Now he's back. Like shit like that's not outlandish to me anymore.
I mean, yeah. Well, so I mean, there has been cases where people with money have gone to prison, right? Like,
Well,
there's
right.
so many cases of that, and so like just because you have a large amount of money, it does not mean that you're like above the law in any way.
And see, I think it's gonna get to a point where
But
that doesn't matter
it-
anymore.
I mean, good lawyers go a long way for sure. There have been like situations where
Well, I mean,
money
Johnny-
has clearly gotten
Johnny
people
fucking
out
Cochran
of like
Got OJ
situations.
out. If you can get OJ out of that, like you know.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it does go a long way.
But then
for
when
sure.
when powerful people do go to prison, depending on what like the power they have is, you get the whole Epstein incident. You know, like that's so very clearly a government cover up, right? It's so obvious that he didn't kill himself. But like,
Yeah.
what's crazy is like when you break down the evidence of everything that happened, and then like right now you can look up the flight logs for his Lolita. It's called the Lolita Express. You know what Lolita means, right? With the origin of that. So I didn't know what it was either. I just had my girlfriend explain it to me. So Lolita is an old Spanish story, and Lolita, ita meaning small, obviously. She was a 14-year-old girl, 12, 14, around there, underage is the point, that was preyed upon by the predator in the story, and he like raped her and like basically imposed
Right.
Yeah, it basically imposed like Stockholm syndrome.
Rip. And
Right?
so that's what they call it. the
Yeah, so
Lolita
like
Express.
yeah, it was literally called the Lolita Express to go to the Epstein Island, and yeah, was there
Crazy.
more to do on the island? Yeah, you could gamble, you could golf, you could fucking whatever, right? Go tan. But you could also
Right.
fuck kids. Like you could also fuck kids. And so when you have something like that called the Lolita Express, you have multiple accounts of women coming out saying that
This is what was happening there.
yeah, this is what was happening.
Yeah.
This is the woman, the
Of
girl,
course,
Ghislaine
yeah.
Maxwell. You know, this woman trafficked me, and then but it's public record. Like you can look it up. There are the flight logs that got released that are like hundreds of pages long. It's the flight logs, and then they had a log of people that checked in to the actual island.
Right, I
and
heard
you
about
s-
that.
yeah, and you see all of these people. Like Bill Richardson's on there 3 fucking times, right? And then you had people like obviously Bill Clinton on there a ton. And you've heard about the painting, right? Of Bill Clinton. So
Oh, man.
yeah, so Epstein had a giant oil canvas printing in like one of the main lofts of his mansion. And it was of Bill Clinton in a purple dress and red high heels, drunk out of his mind.
Okay.
This giant thing that would probably cover this whole wall here.
Cool.
Fucking huge.
Yeah. I want
Yeah.
one.
And so like
How do I get a copy?
you have shit like that. you hire a real ballsy artist. That's what you
Just
do.
need some money.
Yeah.
Dang. All right.
But like but my point about bringing all this up, other than it's just fun to talk shit, you have all of this happen, and you have all this clear evidence, and then what? He killed himself in a prison where he had no sheets. He had no means of hanging himself, but he magically hung himself when the guards weren't looking. The security camera footage was somehow lost or not recording.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
And there were no witnesses on a 24-hour watch. Like, you have all of this evidence. The American public knows it. The grand majority. Like, if you walk down the street and you're like, tell me the Epstein story, they could give you the bare minimum, right? Because you have fucking Facebook.
Right.
And
well,
they,
I mean, like,
they know all this, and like, you still
Yes.
can't do anything about it. Like, what am I going to do about it, right? Go to my local police station, right? To my congressman?
right.
You know what I mean?
It's just like a lot of dirty things. I mean, like, the government is very. I mean, they're not doing everything just like based off of the pure good.
No,
the
of course
people,
not.
Right? There's a lot of really crazy things that
And-
are happening out there.
And like we've said earlier, like there's always going to be that human error, right? There's always human error, but that just goes so far past human error.
Right.
And oh fuck, what was I was my train of thought?
You know, you're gonna have like police officers like knocking down your
Dude,
door, like you're exposing us. Right?
No.
You know?
Yeah, I wouldn't like. I don't know, man. That shit's scary to me. Like that's one of the more beautiful things I think about podcasting is like you can just kind of just sit down and talk shit, and you're not beholden. Like I'm not beholden to like TV ratings or impressing some sort of suit or whatever. I can just like talk shit with whoever wants to talk shit with me and have a good time.
Right.
But like now, what you just said isn't necessarily out of the realm of possibility. Like freedom of speech is kind of being poked at a little bit. You know, it's like
Yeah,
or like
I
chipped
mean,
at.
no,
Like
I
how
get
much
you.
can we take away, right? Like in the form of like shadow banning on Instagram. Or just,
I mean, so here's the cool thing too, is that like a lot of the stuff that is like considered as like top secret, that information is actually out there. You can actually access a lot of the information that's top secret. Like the Los Alamos labs, like there's a lot of like people who have like top security clearances, and they're like, yeah, I can't talk about that, right? But then they can be like, oh, but if you look up like this, that can lead on a pathway to this, and now you
Well,
can actually start to
are you-
understand a lot of the top secret things. That
are you
actually out
talking
there.
about within or outside of like the dark web?
Outside, like a lot of the things on Google, you can just actually look up what the government's doing, and even though they say like, oh, we can't talk about it, I mean, it's out there, and it's very
Yeah.
easy to access that information.
I don't know.
Where we're going with that?
Yeah,
can't
I
remember.
don't
know,
fucking remember.
like-
But like all I know is like
it's crazy.
I think all this
It's a lot
spun
of
out
crazy
of
stuff.
spun out of like big tech,
Yeah.
and all that. But I really do think, like, I don't believe in government regulation. I don't believe in like a giant government. I think that's bad.
Yeah.
But like, there are times where government needs to step in, right? A group of people elected, they have the consent of the governed to lead. They need to step in and stop things from happening.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is the advancement of AI. There needs to be I think, honestly, there needs to be a cutoff point on the AI, then there needs to be a cutoff on wealth.
Yeah. And that will just like come in time, because like we're still very new to AI. We're not like to the point where it's like.
But it's moving
changing
so
everything.
fucking fast.
It is, and that's just how technology works, right? I mean, you've seen like how we've grown since 1995 compared to like how we've grown now. Like
Yeah.
from flip phones to what we have now is just insane,
Small computers.
right? And it's just gonna be exponential from now. Like as things like advance, like we already are Apple is about to release one of the most powerful laptops we've ever had in our lives, right?
Being.
With the M1 chip and everything, like
Oh,
their
right.
laptops and everything that they're creating is just like nothing has ever compared to it before.
Isn't there a huge shortage in like the special fucking minerals or whatever it is that you make that are used to make the chips?
Possibly, I don't actually know.
I think there's a shortage right now. That's why like the whole PlayStation 5 and Xbox thing's all fucked up, because like they don't have
Maybe.
the chips to make a lot of them. But
That's possible. I don't know. Like I don't know about all the politics that comes into like creating like what they create.
all
You
this
know what I
insanity
mean?
they're making.
Yeah, there's a lot involved with that, and then you start looking at things like cryptocurrencies and stuff like that, and how
That's a good thing to end on, actually. Have you been following the cryptocurrencies over the past 72 hours?
72 hours.
Yeah.
No.
With Dogecoin out of nowhere.
Oh, didn't it jump up like to 14 cents or something?
Dude,
like that?
it's hovering at like 35 right now.
Oh, that's crazy.
So because I bought it.
Maybe I should just like invest like $1,000 into that.
Okay,
real
so
quick.
funny you bring that up. I'll tell you the story, then we'll head out of here. My buddy up in Alaska. So back in February, when the shenanigans were going down with AMC, right? AMC and GameStop, namely, Dogecoin was kind of sitting in the back, and people were like, "Dogecoin to the moon, Dogecoin to the moon, buy Dogecoin." And
It was such a meme.
it was a meme.
Yeah.
Exactly, it was a meme, and
big
people
meme.
were like, "Yeah, fuck it, why not?" And I bought into it too. So my buddy threw down $1,000 on Doge. Just fuck it, $1,000.
Why not?
I threw down 100, and then the day afterwards, I threw down another like 40. And I was like, okay, like, we're gonna let it sit. Fuck it, why not? Well, no, it hasn't even been 72 hours. It was just yesterday. It was 2 days ago, so 48 hours ago. Dogecoin, everyone wakes up in the morning, and Dogecoin went from 7 cents
To 14 to
to like 14, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? And then it started just progressing through the day, ended the day at 18. And I'm talking to my homie, and I'm like, dude, it's not going to get up to like 20. Like, don't sell it, but like, this is kind of fun to watch to see what happens.
right.
Yesterday, it opens up at fucking 22. Or no, I'm sorry. It opens up at 18 again, and it gets up to like 22. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? By the end of the day, it closes out at like, God, 32, 38 cents. And
crazy.
my buddy's
That's
made
huge growth.
my buddy's made a profit of a couple $1,000s. There's people reporting that they've made like people put like a retarded amount of money on it way
course.
long time ago.
Of course.
When it was like 1 cent, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
now
yeah.
they've made like hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what is going on? Today, this morning, it opens up at 50 cents.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just gonna go.
Open up at 50 cents.
I'm just gonna go and invest in that real quick.
And I'll show
It's
you
crazy.
I'll show you when we get out of here. But yeah, Dogecoin is getting legit. And I think today, like right now, it's hovering at about 35 or 40. It did a steep drop.
Cool.
But
so now I'm gonna buy in.
Yeah, now's the time. Like we're creeping up on the last couple of weeks of buying in.
Cool.
Like it's insane what's going on. It's definitely something to look into.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple other Bitcoins my buddy was telling me about that are kind of growing right now. But like Dogecoin came out of nowhere.
Of course.
Out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, it was a meme, and then it started getting value. People gave it value.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's gonna continue to grow. That's pretty cool.
Well, thank you for coming by, man.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate you.
That was
I expected a great conversation. We fucking had one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to see where you're going with your marketing stuff and where your office ends up opening up at and how well that progresses.
I'm excited to see how that goes too.
Yeah, and I have a feeling this is the last conversation we're going to have about it. So until next time, thank you so much for coming, man. I appreciate you.
For sure.
Appreciate
for
your
sure.
company.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for
thanks,
listening.
man.
and we'll see you next time. Thanks, buddy.
Later.